The radio crackled the moment I sat down. Not the usual static. Not the usual cold mountain noise. My own voice came through it. Clear. Calm. Perfectly timed. Station 14, checking in. All clear on the lower ridge. I froze with my hand still on the logbook, because I hadn't said that yet. The room felt smaller all of a sudden. The heater was running, but the air turned sharp, like someone opened a door to the outside and forgot to close it. Snowlight pressed against the windows in slow-moving waves, and the wind outside sounded too steady, too controlled. I leaned closer to the radio. Nothing for a few seconds. Then again, my voice. Same tone. Same slight breath before the last word. Station 14, checking in. All clear on the lower ridge. I swallowed hard and looked at the dispatch sheet in front of me. My handwriting. Fresh ink. I hadn't even filled out the first hour yet. My name was already written at the top. Assigned shift, Night Patrol, Station 14. I remember writing it. I do, but the ink looked slightly smudged, like it had been touched by damp fingers. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe a recording glitch. Old transmission loop stuck in the system. That happens in mountain stations, sometimes when weather messes with relay towers. But the problem was simple. That wasn't just a recording. It reacted. The radio hissed again, softer this time, like it was waiting for me to respond. I picked up the receiver slowly. Dispatch, this is Station 14, I said. My voice felt wrong in my own mouth. There was a pause. Too precise, like something on the other end was counting seconds. Then the reply came. Not static, not automated. Me, again. Copy that. Lower ridge is clear. No movement on Highway 37. I felt my fingers tighten around the radio. Highway 37. That wasn't on any of our patrol maps. At least, I didn't think it was. I glanced at the wall map anyway. The big laminated one pin behind my desk. Trails marked in red and yellow. Closed zones crossed out in black ink. No Highway 37. Just empty white space beyond Ridgeline Sector B. A space no one ever talked about. I told myself it was a prank. Someone testing the new guy on his first night. Station 14 had a reputation for that kind of thing. Old staff messing with rookies until they broke. But then the logbook shifted. Not physically. Not like it moved on its own. It was worse than that. A new line appeared under my first entry. Same handwriting. Same pen pressure. Same crooked spacing I always used when I was tired. Lower ridge clear. Highway 37 remains inactive. My throat went dry. I hadn't written that. I was still holding the pen. I looked around the room like someone might be hiding in the corners. Station 14 was small. One desk. One radio unit. One heater that clicked every few seconds like it was struggling to stay alive. No footprints in the snow outside the window. No movement. Just endless white slope disappearing into darkness. The radio crackled again, softer now, but not my voice this time. Something almost like it, a version of it that had been left in the cold too long. Do not leave Station 14 after midnight. I leaned forward instantly. Who is this? I said, identify yourself. Silence. Then my own voice again, but slower this time. Heavier. You already know. That hit something deep in my chest that I didn't like, because I didn't. But at the same time, I felt like I did, like the words were sitting behind my thoughts, waiting for me to remember them. I stood up and walked to the window. The snow outside looked wrong. Not falling, not drifting, hovering, like it was paused midair, waiting for permission to continue. I pressed my hand against the glass. Cold burned through instantly. Then I saw it, a light, far down the lower ridge, blinking once, twice, then stopping completely. A patrol beacon. But none of our teams were scheduled out there tonight. I checked the board again. Unit list, all accounted for. No active rescue calls. No missing skiers reported. Still, the beacon flashed again. And this time it was closer. My radio screamed static for half a second, so loud I nearly dropped it. Then my own voice came back, urgent now. Don't look at Highway 37. I turned immediately. But the map on the wall had changed. I swear it had changed. A thin black line now cut through the blank space beyond Ridgeline B. Handwritten, Highway 37. My stomach dropped. I didn't draw that. I didn't even touch that part of the map. And yet it looked old, faded, like it had always been there. And I was just noticing it late. The heater clicked off. Complete silence followed. That silence was worse than the radio, because in it, I heard footsteps outside. Slow, deliberate, walking around the station. I moved away from the window without thinking and grabbed the flashlight from the drawer. My hand was shaking more than I wanted to admit. The footsteps stopped, right outside the door. I waited. Nothing. Then the radio whispered again. Close. Almost intimate. You're already on shift. I stepped back, because I suddenly remembered something I hadn't thought about when I accepted this job. There had been a warning during orientation. A throwaway comment from the supervisor. Don't take Station 14 if they assign you Highway 37 coverage. Just refuse it. Doesn't matter what they offer. At the time, I thought it was a joke. Now it didn't feel like one. The door creaked. Not opening. Just reacting. Like something on the other side was leaning into it. I raised the flashlight toward it anyway. My voice came through the radio again. Softer now. Calmer. Almost comforting. Open the door. You already checked in. I shook my head immediately. No, I whispered. I didn't. But even as I said it, I wasn't fully sure, because the logbook was still open, and the entry at the top now had 2 timestamps. One for when I arrived, and one for an hour I hadn't lived yet. Slow. Measured, like whoever was already knew exactly where I stood inside. I backed away from the desk, eyes locked on the radio like it might bite me. The beacon outside the window flashed again, closer than before, much closer. Now it was near the tree line, just below the station. And for the first time, I noticed something else. A figure standing beneath it, not moving, just waiting. I couldn't see its face, but I could see the posture. Straight, patient, like it had been standing there long enough to forget what movement felt like. The radio crackled one last time, and my own voice spoke again. But this time it wasn't repeating anything. It was telling me something new, something that made my skin go cold all the way through. Do not go down Highway 37. A pause, then softer, because you already did. The radio didn't stop after the last transmission. It kept breathing, soft static, slow, almost alive. And then a voice came through that I didn't recognize at first. Station 14, please respond. I froze, because it wasn't the voice that scared me. It was the tone, not panic, not urgency. It sounded like someone who had been waiting too long to still be alive. I leaned into the mic slowly. Station 14 here. Go ahead. A pause, then snow crackle, then the voice again, clearer this time. I'm on Hollow Ridge Trail. I think I'm off route. I can't see the markers anymore. My eyes went straight to the map. Hollow Ridge Trail. It wasn't supposed to be active. In fact, it wasn't supposed to exist anymore. That trail had been shut down 5 years ago after the avalanche. The one everyone at the station avoided talking about. I felt my throat tighten. Repeat location. I said, try and keep my voice steady. The answer came slower this time, like the person was thinking too hard. Hollow Ridge. I started from marker 19, but everything looks wrong now. I turned slightly in my chair. Marker 19 didn't exist anymore on the current system. It had been removed after closure, but I checked the physical map again anyway. My fingers traced the blank space, and that's when I saw it. A faint pencil line I swear wasn't there before. Hollow Ridge Trail, marked again, like someone had redrawn it while I wasn't looking. My stomach dropped a little. I looked toward the window instinctively. The snow outside was heavier now, thicker, like the mountain was closing its eyes. Can you see any lights or structures? I asked. The radio hissed. Then the voice answered. I can see the old tower, but it's leaning. It shouldn't be there. My pulse jumped. There was no old tower on any active map. I checked the archive file drawer beside the desk. My hands moved before my mind fully agreed. Old incident reports. Avalanche closure records. Hollow Ridge Trail. File number 37. My fingers stopped. That number again. The same number from earlier. Highway 37. My skin went cold. I pulled the file out. Dust came off like it hadn't been opened in years. Inside were photographs. Black and white images of a collapsed slope. A rescue team half buried in snow. And a tower snapped in half, tilted like it was bowing. But something was wrong. In the background of every photo, there were footprints. Fresh ones, leading into the avalanche zone. But the event report clearly said no additional personnel entered after closure. I swallowed hard. The radio crackled again. I think I hear people. The voice said, far away, but they're calling my name. I leaned closer. Do not move. I said quickly, stay where you are. We're locating you. There was a pause. Too long. Then the voice changed slightly. Still the same person. But the tone felt closer now. I'm not sure I'm alone here anymore. I looked at the live tracking panel. Nothing. No beacon. No GPS signal. No emergency ping. Just empty white noise across the entire ridge network. And yet the transmission kept coming. I saw someone on the trail. The voice continued. They were wearing patrol gear, but their radio wasn't on. My grip tightened around the mic. Described them, I said. The reply came almost instantly. Too instantly. Like the memory was already waiting. They were standing still, looking at the snow like they were waiting for it to speak. A chill ran through me, because I remembered something. From earlier logs, from old training stories, people said that after the avalanche, some patrol units never got fully recovered. Not bodies, not gear, just transmissions, frozen in the system. I shook the thought away. No one is on Hollow Ridge. I said firmly, that trail is closed. You might be experiencing signal distortion. Silence. Then a small sound came through the radio, like breathing, but not the normal kind. Too slow, too controlled. Then the voice replied, I think the mountain is moving. I stood up immediately. That sentence hit wrong, like it didn't belong in real conversation. I walked toward the window again. Outside, the slope looked different, not in shape, but in depth, like the snow had become thicker in places it shouldn't be, as if something beneath it was pushing upward. The radio suddenly spiked with static, loud, sharp. Then my own voice broke through it again, but it wasn't repeating anymore. It was warning me. Stop the transmission. I froze. That wasn't part of the call. That wasn't the skier. That was me, or something using my voice. I whispered into the mic, repeat that, but the skier spoke instead. I think I see the patrol tower now. It's closer than before. My chest tightened. That's impossible. I said out loud, the tower had been destroyed, removed from the zone entirely after the avalanche. No structure remained there, not even foundations. But the voice didn't stop. It's not broken anymore, the skier said softly. It looks new. A long silence followed. Even the wind outside felt like it paused to listen. Then another sound came through. Faint, metal creaking, like something heavy shifting under pressure. I looked at the map again. Hollow Ridge Trail was no longer faint. It was darker now, clearly drawn, extending further than it should, like it was growing. My radio crackled again, but this time I heard two voices layered together, the skier and something else underneath it. A second voice, calm, familiar, mine, send coordinates. I said through the mic without meaning to. The skier replied instantly, I'm already at them. My breath stopped. Repeat, I said sharply, but instead of repeating, the signal changed. A new tone entered the line. Lower, heavier, like the entire mountain had leaned into the frequency. And then I heard footsteps through the radio. Not snow crunching, not wind, steps inside the transmission, approaching slowly, then stopping, right next to the mic. And the skier whispered something that made my entire body lock. I think I found your station. I turned toward the window instantly. The beacon outside flickered. Once, twice, then stayed on, bright, right below the ridge, closer than it had been before, much closer, and standing beneath it was the same figure from earlier, but now it wasn't alone. There were more behind it, barely visible through the storm, standing in a loose formation like they were waiting for instructions. Patrol uniforms, old design, the kind we stopped using years ago. My radio hissed violently, and the skier's voice came one last time. But it wasn't lost anymore. It was certain. I'm at Station 14. A pause, then softer, and I think I've been here before. The first thing I noticed was that the radio stopped waiting for me. It started finishing my thoughts before I even spoke. A call came in at 2:14 a.m. The speaker lit up red on its own, like it had been expecting that exact second. I hadn't touched the mic yet, but a voice came through anyway. My voice. Station 14, go ahead. I froze, because I hadn't checked in. Not yet. I slowly leaned toward the radio, eyes locked on the blinking light. Dispatch, I said carefully. A pause, then static. Then the reply came instantly, like it had been stored ahead of time. Unit will report visual on Ridge Line B in 3 minutes. I pulled back. That wasn't normal dispatch behavior. They don't predict. They ask. They wait. I checked the wall clock. 2 hours, 14 minutes, and 37 seconds. My stomach tightened a little. I wrote it down in the logbook anyway, hand shaking slightly. But before I even finished the line, the radio crackled again. Correction, 2 minutes, 40 seconds. I stopped writing, looked at the radio. The timing had changed. Not guessed, corrected, like something was watching the clock with me. I whispered, "Who is this?" The radio didn't respond for a moment. Then, softly, "You asked that already." My breath caught, because I hadn't. Not yet. I sat up straighter in the chair. The heater clicked in the corner, but it didn't feel warm anymore. It felt like noise, like background sound for something else happening in the room. I opened the dispatch log screen on the computer. The system was already active. That was strange. I hadn't logged in, but the screen showed. Active call. Ridge Line B unknown unit. My cursor blinked inside the text box. Waiting, like it expected me to continue a conversation I hadn't started. I clicked into the call details. The notes section already had text, not system generated. Handwritten font style. My handwriting. Visual confirmation pending. Weather unstable. Avoid Highway 37 corridor. My hand left the mouse immediately. I hadn't typed that, but it looked like something I would write. Same abbreviations. Same short panic style. The radio hissed again. This time softer. Closer. Do not deviate from script. I frowned. What script? I said out loud, and instantly, the radio replied, "You are on line 3 of 9. A chill moved through my chest. Line 3 of 9. I looked at the system screen again. There was no indicator like that anywhere. No protocol sequence. No multi-line structure. But the call continued anyway. Unit approaching Ridge Line B, the voice said calmly. But it wasn't a normal field unit voice. It was layered, like two people speaking in exact sync, one slightly delayed behind the other. I leaned closer to the mic without thinking. "Identify unit," I said. The response came immediately. "Station 14. I froze. My fingers went cold on the desk. "That's not possible," I said quickly. "Station 14 is not in field rotation." A pause. Then the radio answered again, not correcting me, explaining. "You assigned it." My eyes snapped up. "No," I said under my breath. "I didn't." But the logbook beside me made a soft sound, pages shifting. Not wind, something else. Slowly, I looked down. A new entry had appeared, right under my last note. Same ink, same pressure, same timing I would normally write in. Unit Station 14 deployed. Route, Ridge Line B. Contingency, Highway 37. I felt my chest tighten. That name again, Highway 37. It was becoming too frequent, too present, like it was trying to replace everything else. The radio clicked again, and this time, it didn't feel like communication. It felt like instruction. Begin verification. I hesitated, then spoke. What am I verifying? The answer came instantly. Your presence. A long silence followed. Even the wind outside seemed to hold still for a moment. I stood up slowly, walked toward the window. The snow outside looked thicker than before, heavier, like it wasn't falling but being lowered. And far down the slope, I saw a movement, a faint light, then another, beacon signals. But they weren't random. They were forming a line, a path, straight toward the station. I stepped back, my chair scraped behind me. The radio spoke again. We are almost synchronized. I turned back. What does that mean? I said sharply. The reply came slower now, more careful, like it was adjusting itself to sound human. It means you are matching frequency. My stomach dropped. Matching what frequency? A pause. Then, you already did. The computer screen flickered. Once, twice, then it changed. The call window expanded on its own. Now, there were multiple lines. Line 1, active line 2, active line 3, active line 4, active. All of them labeled station 14. All of them showing the same live feed. Different timestamps, different coordinates, but the same voice. My voice. I backed away from the desk slowly. No, I whispered. This is a loop. This is a system error. But even as I said it, I didn't believe it, because the radio wasn't glitching. It was remembering. The speaker crackled again. And suddenly, I heard something that wasn't part of any transmission. Footsteps inside the audio. Clear, crunching snow, moving toward a door. I looked at my own door instantly. The station door. It hadn't moved, but the sound in the radio matched it perfectly. Step, pause. Step, pause. Like something outside was syncing itself with what the system was hearing. Then the radio spoke again. Calm, too calm. Do not open the door during line 5. I blinked. Line 5 hadn't activated yet. But even as I thought that, the screen updated. Line 5 incoming. My breathing went shallow. I reached for the mic instinctively. Dispatch, I said quickly. Cancel all active routing. Freeze all transmission logs. Silence. Then my voice replied, but wrong. Slightly older, slightly tired. Cannot cancel what already occurred. I stepped back hard. Chair hit the wall behind me. The radio continued anyway. Unit is now on Ridgeline B. I turned toward the window again. The lights outside had moved closer. Much closer. They were no longer forming a path. They were surrounding the station. Slowly, like something was drawing a circle around me. The radio clicked, and a new voice entered the line. Not mine, not dispatch. Something deeper. Familiar in a way I couldn't place. Stop resisting synchronization. My hand shook now. Who are you? I said into the mic. A pause. Then the answer came. Simple. Cold. You already reported me. My mind went blank for a second. Then I remembered the logbook entries. The ones I didn't write. The ones that kept appearing anyway. Lower Ridge clear. Highway 37 remains inactive. Unit deployed. I swallowed hard. No, I said again. That's not me. The radio responded instantly. You will say it next. A sudden burst of static hit the speaker. So loud I flinched. Then everything dropped silent. Too silent. Even the wind outside disappeared. Then a final message came through. Slow, clear, precise. Line 5 begins now. The lights outside stopped moving. All at once. Like they had been waiting for that exact command. And then my radio, my only connection to dispatch, went completely still. No static. No noise. Just one last soft click. Like something had switched from listening to waiting. The lights outside were not moving like normal beacons anymore. They were walking. Slow. Steady. Like someone carrying them through the storm. And the worst part? They were getting closer, without ever changing speed. I stood at the window, unable to blink for a few seconds. The whiteout outside had thickened so much it looked like the mountain had been erased. No trees, no slope, Just moving snow and those impossible lights cutting through it. 3 of them at first, then 5, then I lost count, all forming a loose line across the lower ridge, heading straight towards Station 14. My radio stayed silent, not dead silent. Worse, like it was holding its breath. I grabbed the mic anyway. Dispatch, this is Station 14. Do you read me? Nothing. I tried again. Confirm visual on beacon movement in restricted zone. Still nothing. Only static that came and went like distant breathing. I turned to the satellite monitor. It should have shown everything. It always did. But the screen looked wrong. Not broken. Just empty. The entire lower ridge zone was marked. No data available. That wasn't normal. Even during storms, even during signal loss, there was always noise, always fragments. But this was clean. Too clean. Like someone had erased the mountain itself from the system. I leaned closer to the screen. Zoomed in manually. Nothing appeared. No heat signatures. No movement. No patrol units. No skiers. Nothing at all in the exact zone where I was watching lights move through the storm with my own eyes. My stomach tightened. I whispered without thinking. Then what am I seeing? As soon as I said it, the radio crackled once. Soft, almost gentle. You were seeing confirmation. My head snapped toward it. The voice wasn't mine this time. It wasn't dispatch either. It sounded like the system itself had started speaking without permission. I stepped back slowly. Confirmation of what? I said, a pause. Then, active presence on Highway 37 perimeter. My chest tightened hard at that name again. Highway 37. Always returning. Always closer. I looked out the window again. The lights were nearer now. Much nearer. They were no longer spread out. They were gathering. Like something was organizing them. Not random movement anymore. Intentional. Structured. Like formation. I pressed my hand against the glass. The cold burned instantly. But beyond it, I saw something between the lights. Shapes. Not clear. Not human-shaped exactly. But too upright to be natural. Standing in the storm like they belonged there. And each shape had a light mounted on its shoulder. Like patrol gear. Old patrol gear. The kind we retired after the Avalanche reports. My throat went dry. I reached for the binoculars. My hands were shaking more than I wanted them to. I focused on the closest figure. The image snapped into place slowly through the storm, and my stomach dropped instantly. It was wearing a ski patrol jacket. Old model. The same one from the archive photos in the Avalanche file. But it wasn't the uniform that made me freeze. It was the face. Or the lack of it. Just a smooth blur where features should have been. Like the storm refused to let me see it clearly. And the beacon on its shoulder flickered. Once. Twice. Then stabilized. Like it had locked onto something. Me. The radio suddenly came alive again. Not loud. Controlled. Precise. Visual confirmation received. I stepped back. No, I said immediately. There is no unit in that zone. But the radio didn't respond to my denial. It continued like it was reading a report. 3 units detected on Lower Ridge approach. I looked outside again quickly. There were more now. Not 3, not 5, dozens. Spread across the whiteout like a silent patrol line forming around the station. My breath came faster. This is impossible, I whispered. The radio answered instantly. Impossibility does not affect observation. That sentence hit harder than I expected, because it didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like policy, like something that had been written long before I ever took this job. I checked the satellite feed again. Still empty. Still clean. I zoomed out. The entire mountain region showed no movement. No storm interference signatures. No anomalies. Just blank data fields. But outside my window, the mountain was full of them. I turned away from the screen. My mind was splitting between 2 realities. One inside the system. One outside it. And neither matched. A sudden crackle came from the radio again. This time sharper. Like something had forced its way through. And then I heard it. My own voice. But not from earlier recordings. From now. Do not trust satellite confirmation. I froze because I hadn't spoken. Not yet, but the voice continued anyway. System is observing through delay. I stepped toward the desk slowly. My reflection in the dark monitor looked wrong, just slightly off, like I was a frame behind myself. I leaned closer. "Who is this?" I said. The answer came softly. "You already asked that on line 6. My chest tightened. Line 6. The earlier sequence. The script they mentioned. The radio clicked again. And suddenly the beacon lights outside changed direction. All at once. No gradual shift. Instant pivot. Every single light turned toward Station 14, like a collective decision had been made. I took a step back from the window. The storm pressed harder now. Snow hitting the glass like static trying to break through. Then I saw something new. One of the figures raised its arm, slowly, and pointed directly at the station. The radio responded instantly. Approach confirmed. My voice cracked when I spoke. "What is approaching?" A pause. Then, "Your previous shift." My skin went cold. I shook my head. That doesn't make sense. But even as I said it, I remembered something from earlier logs. Entries that didn't belong to me. Shift overlaps. Duplicate timestamps. Same handwriting. Different outcomes. The radio spoke again. "You are overlapping now." I stepped away from the window completely. The lights outside were close enough that I could see their movement clearly now. They weren't walking randomly. They were repeating patterns. Exact patterns. Like replaying something recorded. A patrol route. One that felt familiar in a way I didn't want to understand. Then one of them stopped right below the station, right beneath my window, and looked up, even without a visible face. I felt it, the recognition. The radio went silent for a full second. Then a new message came through. Slow, clear, like it had been waiting for this exact moment. Station 14 operator confirmed on-site. I stepped back immediately. "No," I said. "I am on-site. I am here." The radio responded instantly. Then who was outside? I turned toward the window again, and my breath stopped completely, because now there was a figure inside the station yard, not behind the fence, not in the distance, inside, standing just a few meters from the door, beacon light flickering steadily on its shoulder, and it wasn't moving, just waiting, like it already knew I would eventually open the door. The radio gave one final soft click. And then a sentence came through that didn't feel like communication anymore. It felt like instruction completion. Beacon convergence complete. A pause, then softer. Prepare for retrieval. Outside, all the lights stopped moving at the same time. Every single one. Perfectly still. Like the storm itself had been paused. And in that silence, the figure outside the station raised its hand and tapped once on the door. The radio didn't just tap anymore. It started knocking back, slow, deliberate, like it was answering the figure outside the door. I stood frozen in the middle of Station 14, staring at the door, unable to decide if I should move or breathe or even think. One knock, then another, then silence. And in that silence, the radio came alive again, not static this time. A voice, panicked, sharp. "Unit 7 to dispatch, do you copy? We're losing visual on Ridgeline B." I felt something tighten in my chest. Unit 7. That name wasn't supposed to be active tonight. I grabbed the mic instantly. "Dispatch here. Unit 7, report your status." A burst of static swallowed everything. Then the voice came back, but weaker. Visibility dropped to 0. "Whiteout is total. We're trying to reach the injured skier, but..." The transmission broke. For half a second, only wind filled the channel. Then another voice cut in. "Not dispatch. Not mine. One of theirs. Do not proceed beyond marker threshold." I froze, because I knew that phrase. It wasn't normal protocol. It was old, pre-avalanche language, back when Hollow Ridge still existed as a full route. My fingers tightened around the mic. "Unit 7. I said, trying to keep control of my voice, confirm your position." A pause. Too long. Then, "We are past marker 19. My stomach dropped. Marker 19 didn't exist anymore. It had been erased after the avalanche. I looked instinctively at the wall map, and my breath caught because marker 19 was back. Not just drawn, but highlighted like it had always been part of the system. My vision narrowed slightly. I whispered, "That's not possible." The radio answered instantly. Coordinates locked. A new sound came through the channel. Heavy breathing. Fast. Uneven. Then Unit 7 again. "We found him. The skier is alive." But a pause, like the sentence broke in half. Then softer. "He says he has been here before." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Outside the window, the figure was still standing, waiting, not moving, just listening, like it knew every word being spoken inside. I stepped back from the window slowly. The radio crackled again. "Begin extraction protocol." My voice came out before I could stop it. "Negative. Confirmed terrain. Marker 19 is closed." Silence. Then, "You're confirming outdated map." My breath hitched. Outdated. Not wrong. Not broken. Outdated. Like the system had moved on without me. The radio shifted tone again. And suddenly, I wasn't hearing one voice anymore. I was hearing multiple. Layered. Unit 7. Dispatch. My voice. All overlapping in the same channel. "We are carrying the injured skier. We are carrying the injured skier. We are already carrying him." I stepped back fast. "No," I said sharply. "Stop transmission. Overlap." But the radio didn't listen. It continued. "Distance to Station 14. 3.2 kilometers." I blinked. "What?" I whispered. The voice repeated. "Distance to Station 14. 2.9 kilometers." My pulse spiked. I grabbed the satellite screen again. Still empty. Still clean. But now something new appeared on the map. A thin moving line. Approaching. Not from outside the zone. From inside it. I stare harder. The line wasn't a path. It was a route being written in real time. As if something was drawing itself toward the station while I watched. The radio clicked again. And Unit 7 spoke again. But now their tone had changed. Calmer. Strangely calm. "We can see the station now." My throat tightened. "That's impossible," I said out loud, but the voice didn't hesitate. "We are on Highway 37 approach." Everything in me went still. Highway 37. I stepped back instinctively. The lights outside the window flickered. Once, twice, and then all of them moved again. But not randomly. They were retreating, not away from the station, toward it, closing in from every direction. I turned toward the door. The knock had stopped. The silence felt heavier now. Like whatever was outside was no longer waiting. It was listening. The radio spoke again. "Unit 7 visual confirmed on station perimeter." I whispered, "How many are you?" A pause. Then the answer came. 1 unit. Multiple positions. My mind struggled to process that. 1 unit, multiple positions? I repeated. The radio responded instantly. "You are also 1 unit." I shook my head. "No, I am Station 14. But even as I said it, I felt it, that small crack in certainty, like the definition of me, was not as fixed as I thought. The logbook on the desk shifted. A page turned on its own. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just watched as new text appeared, slowly forming. Same handwriting. Same pressure. Unit 7 arriving. I stepped back hard. Chair at the wall again. My voice shook. "This is not real," I said. "This is signal contamination." The radio answered softly. "Reality is not required for operation." That line made my skin go cold. Outside, the figure at the door finally moved. Just slightly, tilting its head, like it was listening to the exact same words I was. Then the radio changed again. Unit 7 came through, but now their voices were closer. Too close. "We are at station boundary." I turned toward the window. The lights were gone. All of them, except one, right at the door. Station 14 yard, standing still. And now, it was joined. More shapes appearing behind it. forming a line again, like they had arrived at their destination. I stepped backward until I hit the desk. My hands were shaking. The radio crackled. Open access required. I whispered, "No." Then Unit 7 spoke again, and this time, their voice didn't come through the speaker. It came from outside the room, from inside the station yard, right below the window. I think we're inside now. My breath stopped. I turned slowly toward the glass, and there, just beyond the reflection, I saw them, not clearly, not fully formed, but close enough to understand. Ski patrol uniforms, old models, snow-covered, standing in perfect silence, and at the front of them, a radio speaker clipped to a chest harness, still transmitting, still alive. I raised my mic slowly, my hand barely working. "Unit 7, I said quietly. A pause. Then the answer came, not from the radio, from directly behind me. "We are not 7 anymore." I turned instantly. Nothing behind me, only the radio on the desk, still glowing, still active. Then it spoke again, one final time. "Calm. Final. We are return protocol." The lights outside Station 14 shifted once more, all at the same time, and every single one turned off, except the one at my door. Still on, still waiting. Then the radio added one last line, soft, almost like a memory surfacing. "Highway 37 is not a route." A pause. Then, "It is where units return to complete their shift." The door creaked slightly, not opening, not closing, just reacting. And in that thin gap of silence, I understood something I didn't want to understand. Unit 7 wasn't coming to rescue anyone. They were coming back to finish something that never ended. And my radio was already counting me as part of them. The Avalanche report never stopped screaming. It just kept going. Same voice, same panic, same broken breath between words. Still moving, I repeat, still moving. Snowpack collapse, visibility gone. I sat in Station 14 staring at the radio like it had grown teeth because it had been 3 hours. 3 hours of the same transmission. No pause, no reset, no ending. Just the same avalanche repeating like the mountain forgot how to stop falling. I leaned closer to the mic. "Dispatch, confirm status of Ridgeline sector. Is this live or replay?" Silence for half a second. Then, "Do not approach." The voice cut mid-sentence, then looped back into itself. Still moving, I repeat, still moving. I pulled back slowly. My chest felt tight in a way I didn't like. Not fear yet, something worse. Confusion that couldn't settle. I checked the system log. Timestamp, active event, 2 a.m., but the clock on the wall said 5:17 a.m. That mismatch hit me harder than the audio. 3 hours missing, or 3 hours stuck. I rubbed my eyes once, looked again. Same result. The Avalanche feed was still running. But the strange part wasn't just the repetition. It was a detail. Every loop added something new. Small things, wrong things. At first it was just snow collapse reports. Then it became names. Then coordinates. Then unit call signs. I leaned closer again. The radio hissed. "Unit 7, report position." I froze. Unit 7 wasn't deployed yet. Not tonight. Not even scheduled. I checked the dispatch board on the wall. Blank for Unit 7. No assignment. No activation. But the radio kept speaking like they were already out there. Unit 7 visual lost. I stood up immediately. Walked to the board. Ran my finger down the list. Nothing had changed. But behind me, the radio clicked again. And the Avalanche voice came back softer now. Almost calm. "They're under the snow now." My stomach tightened. I turned slightly. "Who is this?" I said out loud. No answer. Only wind distortion. Then, a second voice slipped into the channel. Not the Avalanche. Not dispatch. Something closer. Something wrong. "Do not interrupt the cycle." I stepped back. The heater in the corner clicked off suddenly. The room felt colder instantly, like the building itself was listening now. I grabbed the mic again. "This is Station 14. Identify yourself." A pause. longer than before. Then the avalanche feed returned, but it wasn't the same anymore. It was layered. Two transmissions now overlapping. One still screaming, one whispering underneath it. Snow keeps moving. It already covered them. I stared at the radio like it wasn't a machine anymore, like it was a mouth. I checked the external cameras. Lower ridge feed, black screen, no signal, but the audio continued perfectly. That shouldn't happen. If video dies, audio dies. That's how the system works. Unless something is still transmitting from inside the network. I felt my throat go dry. Then the radio changed again. A new tone entered. Calm, professional, like dispatch again. Unit confirmation required. I leaned in slowly. Dispatch. I asked carefully. The reply came instantly, but it wasn't answering me. It was answering itself. Unit confirmation received. All units accounted for under snowpack. I stopped breathing for a second. All units. I whispered. The radio repeated. All units accounted for. But something about the tone felt wrong. Too final, like a statement that was trying to become truth by saying it enough times. I looked at the logbook. It was open already. I don't remember opening it, but there it was. Fresh ink, same handwriting. Event ongoing. Do not close transmission. My hand moved before I thought. I flipped the page back. Earlier entries. Same handwriting again, but different timestamps. Some from today, some from tomorrow. I stared at one line longer than I should have. Highway 37 access initiated. My pulse jumped. That name again. Always that name. I whispered, "What is Highway 37? The radio responded immediately. Route designation not available in current map system. I turned sharply. No map has it. Silence. Then, you're using current map. That answer didn't make sense. But it didn't feel like a mistake either. It felt like correction. I stepped back toward the window. Outside, the snow had started falling heavier. Not naturally. Too straight. Too uniform. Like it was being placed rather than falling. The avalanche transmission suddenly spiked. Loud. Chaotic. Structural failure. Unit 7 down. We lost contact. I covered my ears for a second. Then it stopped. Instantly. No fade. No ending. Just silence. And in that silence, a new voice spoke. Close. Very close. Report status. I spun around. No one in the room. Only the radio. Still glowing. Still active. I swallowed hard. Status of what? I said. The reply came slower this time, like it was thinking. Status of collapse completion. My chest tightened. Collapse? I repeated. The radio clicked once. And then, for the first time, the avalanche feed didn't repeat. It advanced. A new segment played. Snow has reached station perimeter. I froze. My eyes snapped to the window. Outside, the white line of snowfall looked closer now. Much closer than before. Almost touching the glass. I took a step back. The radio continued. Station 14 compromised. My voice came out weaker than I expected. We are not in avalanche zone. The response was immediate. You are now. A long silence followed. Then the system log on my screen updated on its own. New line added. Station 14, partial burial predicted. I felt my hands go cold. That word, predicted, not happened, not confirmed. Predicted, like it was already decided. I stepped back from the desk. The avalanche audio returned again, but now it was different. Slower, more controlled, like it was approaching conclusion. Unit 7 last transmission received. I leaned forward to spite myself. Play last transmission. I said into the mic. A pause. Then a new audio file opened. Not looped, not repeated. This one was clean, sharp, a voice, breathing heavy, close to panic. This is Unit 7. We are inside collapse zone. I can see something under the snow. My heart beat harder. What do you see? I whispered. The voice answered instantly. Lights. I froze. Lights. I repeated. Yes. The transmission continued. Not emergency lights. Something else. They're moving under the snow. A chill ran through my body. The audio shifted slightly, like the mic had been turned. Then another voice entered the same recording. Not Unit 7. Something deeper. Calmer. Continue approach. I stepped back quickly. That's not protocol, I said out loud, but the radio answered me. It is now. The Unit 7 transmission returned. Command, please confirm. Then static, then silence, and then a final fragment, a single sentence, whispered, almost too quiet to hear. We found Highway 37. The audio cut. Everything stopped. Even the Avalanche feed went silent for the first time in hours. No repetition, no noise, just silence. I stood there not moving, waiting for it to come back. But it didn't. Instead, the radio gave one soft click and spoke one last line. Calm, precise, cycle complete. The lights in the room flickered once. Outside, the snowfall stopped midair for a second, like the world forgot how to continue. Then the radio added something softer, almost like a thought leaking through. Unit 7 will resume on next shift. I felt my throat tighten. Next shift, I looked at the logbook. A new page had already turned itself, fresh ink forming slowly, and the first line was already there. Waiting. Station 14. Prepare for continuation. The radio went silent again, but I knew it wasn't over, because somewhere under all that snow, something had already started moving toward the station, and it knew my shift wasn't finished yet. The voice should not have been there. That's the first thing I remember thinking, because trapped under snow, people don't sound like this. They don't sound calm. They don't sound clear. But this voice came through the radio like the storm didn't exist at all. Station 14, do you copy? I froze, not because of the call, but because of how clean it was. No crackle, no distortion, just a perfect human voice sitting inside a machine that should have been drowning in static. I leaned toward the mic slowly. Station 14 here. Identify yourself. A pause, too controlled. Then the answer came. I'm under the snow. My fingers tightened around the radio. Under the snow. That shouldn't even allow transmission. I checked the system logs immediately. No active beacons. No rescue tags. No GPS signal. Nothing. But the voice continued anyway. I can still hear you clearly. That line made something cold crawl under my skin. Because if he could hear me clearly, then either the system was lying or the mountain was doing something it wasn't supposed to. I looked at the avalanche feed still stuck from earlier cycles. Frozen timestamp. Same collapse ridge. Same dead zone. But now, a new marker blinked once on the edge of the screen. Unregistered signal detected. I leaned closer. Where are you located? I asked. The reply came instantly. Below marker 19. My stomach dropped slightly. Marker 19 again. That number would start to feel like a bruise in the system, always appearing where it shouldn't exist. I glanced at the wall map. Marker 19 was faint. Too faint, like someone had erased it and redrawn it badly. But now a small dot pulsed right under it. A live signal. Impossible. I whispered, that area is closed. The voice responded without hesitation. I know. That hit harder than it should have, because it didn't sound confused. It sounded aware, like it accepted the impossible as normal. I leaned closer to Mike. How long have you been trapped? I asked. A pause. Not static. Not delay. Something more like thought. Then, I don't remember surface. My throat tightened. That shouldn't make sense. People don't forget the surface. Even in avalanche burials. There's panic, noise, breathing, time, but not forgetting reality itself. I checked oxygen estimates in my head. Without meaning to, burial survival limit is minutes, maybe an hour in perfect pockets. But this voice was steady, controlled, alive. I looked toward the window instinctively. The snow outside had changed again. It wasn't falling anymore. It was pressing, like something leaning against the glass from the outside world. The radio crackled softly. Are you still there? the voice asked. Yes, I said quickly. Too quickly. I didn't know why I answered so fast. It just felt like something important depended on it. A pause. Then the skier spoke again. I think I'm not alone down here. My chest tightened. Describe your surroundings, I said. The answer came slowly now, like he was looking around in real time. Dark, tight, but I could see light sometimes. I frowned. Light. Yes, he said. Not natural, like it's coming through the snow itself. I looked at the avalanche feed again, the same frozen image, but the signal marker pulsed faster now, as if reacting to the conversation. I leaned in. Is the light moving? I asked. A pause. Then, it's getting closer when I speak. My fingers went cold. That shouldn't be possible. Light doesn't respond to voice. Unless... I stopped that thought before it formed fully. The radio suddenly hissed. But not from the skier. From somewhere else. Like interference pushing through layers of the system. Then another voice slipped in. Low. Controlled. Do not guide the signal. I straightened instantly. Who is this? I snapped. Silence. Then the skier returned. I can hear someone else now. My throat tightened. Ignore interference, I said quickly. Stay focused on my voice. But the skier didn't respond immediately. Instead, I heard something new. Breathing. Not his. Something heavier. Closer to the mic. Like something had moved near him under the snow. Then he whispered. There's pressure changing around me. My eyes shifted back to the screen. The signal marker flickered. Once. Twice. Then split into two. I leaned closer. No, I muttered. That's not possible. The radio crackled again. The skier spoke faster now. I think something is moving above me. My heart rate picked up. Hold position, I said. Do not move. A pause. Then, I can't move. That answer felt wrong. Not physically wrong. Emotionally wrong. Like he wasn't describing limitation. He was describing state. I stood up slightly. What do you mean you can't move? I asked. The answer came softer now. Because I'm already buried again. My breath stopped. Again? I repeated. Silence. Then the skier said something that made my stomach drop completely. I already dug out once. I looked at the logbook. Without thinking. It was open. A new line had appeared. I hadn't written it. I already dug out once. Same handwriting. Same pressure. Same ink. My hands went cold instantly. No, I whispered. The radio crackled sharply. And suddenly the skier's voice changed. Not tone. Not pitch. Understanding. Like something clicked. Wait, he said slowly. I remember you now. I froze. That's not possible, I said immediately. But he continued. You were on the surface when it happened. My pulse jumped. I had no memory of this call. No record of it. No assignment. Nothing. But the skier kept speaking. You told me not to go past marker 19. My throat tightened. I looked at the map again. Marker 19 was glowing faintly now. Not drawn. Not marked. But illuminated. Like it was being remembered into existence. I stepped back from the desk. This is wrong, I said under my breath. The radio suddenly cut the skier off, and a new voice entered. Cold, structured, system-like, memory overlap detected. I turned sharply. What does that mean? I demanded. The reply came instantly. It means a subject is still transmitting from buried state. My mind struggled to process that. Subject. I repeated. Then the skier came back. But weaker now. Distant. I think I see you standing above me. I felt a chill run through my entire body. No, I said firmly. You are buried. You cannot see anything. But his voice didn't argue. It simply said, then why are you looking down? I turned instinctively toward the window, and for a split second, I saw it. Not clearly, not fully formed, but something beneath the snow outside. A shadow shape, too close to the station, too aligned with my position. I stepped back immediately. The radio hissed violently. Then the system voice returned. Depth connection established. I shook my head. No connection exists, I said quickly, but the system didn't stop. Signal and observer synchronized. The skier spoke one last time, very softly, almost relieved. I think I can hear air again. My chest tightened. That's good, I said quickly. Stay with me? But the reply that came wasn't comforting. It was final. I think I'm closer to the surface than I was before. Then silence. Complete silence. No static. No breathing. No system noise. Just empty radio air. I stood there for several seconds, not moving. Then the logbook turned itself again. A new line formed slowly. Burial status updated. Partial emergence. My heart dropped. I whispered, "No, that's not how it works." But the radio clicked once, and the system responded softly. Highway 37 adjust conditions. I froze. That name again, always appearing when reality stopped behaving correctly. The snow outside pressed harder against the glass, and for the first time, I wasn't sure if I was the one standing above the buried anymore, or if something beneath the snow was learning how to look back up. The snow depth meter should not have been moving, but it was climbing, slow, steady, like the mountain was breathing upward instead of down. I stared at the screen in Station 14, waiting for it to glitch back to normal. It didn't. 12.4 meters. 12.6, 12.9, no storm outside, no new snowfall, just silence in the weather feed, and yet the system kept insisting the ground was disappearing. I leaned closer. Station sensors are malfunctioning. I said into the radio, trying to sound calm, request calibration reset. A pause. Too clean. Then dispatch answered. Calibration denied. Snowpack is active. I frowned. Active how? I asked. No response. Only the slow electronic beep of the depth meter climbing again. 13.2 meters. 13.5. I stood up, walked straight to the wall panel. The physical gauge outside the station window should have matched the system. It didn't. The outside marker was frozen at 6 meters. Normal. Stable. But the digital feed kept rising like the mountain had split into two versions of itself. I whispered, "Which one is lying?" The radio clicked instantly. Neither. That answer made my chest tighten. I looked outside. The snow looked normal at first. Still, quiet, but then I noticed something wrong. The drift line near the station base wasn't settling. It was lifting, not falling, rising, like the ground itself was pushing upward under pressure. I stepped back from the window. The radio beeped again. 13.9 meters. Then 14.0. I shook my head. No storm has passed, I said out loud. This is impossible accumulation. The reply came softer this time. Not dispatch, not system. My own voice. You are measuring from the wrong side. I froze, because that wasn't part of any transmission. That was familiarity. Like I had heard it before inside my own head. I turned toward the logbook. It was already open. I hadn't touched it, but new ink was forming again. Slowly, line by line. Snowpack inversion detected. My throat tightened. Inversion? I repeated. The radio answered immediately. Ground references shifted. I stepped back from the desk. What does that mean? I said sharply. A pause. Then, it means you're inside the accumulation zone. My stomach dropped. Inside? That didn't make sense. The station is above ground. Always above ground. Always stable. But the sensors didn't agree anymore. 15.2 meters. 15.6. The number kept climbing like it had no intention of stopping. I walked toward the emergency panel. Press manual override. Nothing. Press again. Still nothing. The system was responding, but not to me. It was responding to the snow. The radio suddenly hissed, and a new voice came through. Not dispatch. Not mine. Something older. Slower. You are being buried upward. I stopped breathing for a second. What? I whispered. The voice continued calmly. Snowpack is not descending. It is rising through structure. I looked around the station. Walls felt the same. Floor felt normal. but something in the air shifted slightly. Pressure, like the room had grown heavier, without changing shape. I stepped toward the window again, and this time I saw it clearly. The snow outside wasn't falling at all. It was stacking upward in slow motion, layer after layer forming from below the surface, like the earth was pushing winter up instead of winter falling down. My hands went cold. This is not possible physics, I said under my breath. The radio responded instantly. Physics unchanged. Perspective changed. That line hit harder than it should have, because it sounded like an explanation, not a warning. I checked the external sensors again. The graph was now steep. Too steep. 15.9 meters. 16.3. But the physical gauge outside still showed 6 meters. Two realities. Same location. Different truths. I leaned into the mic. Dispatch! Confirm which system is primary. I said. A pause. Longer than before. Then, both systems are operational. I shook my head. That's not an answer. Silence followed. Then the radio clicked, and a new line appeared in the logbook by itself. Observer mismatch detected. My chest tightened. Observer. Me. I turned back toward the window, and that's when I saw it. A shape in the snow. Not moving. Not walking. Just rising. Slowly, like it had been buried for a long time and was finally catching up to the surface. I stepped back instantly. No, I whispered. That's not a structure. The radio responded softly. It is not a structure. My throat tightened. Then what is it? I asked. A pause. Then, it is a previous layer. My mind struggled to process that. Previous layer. Like time itself had stratified. Like the mountain was not built upward, but stacked with events. The sensor jumped again. 16.9 meters. 17.4. The number wasn't just increasing now. It was accelerating. I grabbed the radio. This has to be recalibrated immediately. I said firmly, but the response came instantly. Calibration would require collapse reversal. My hands paused. Collapse reversal? I repeated. The radio clicked, and for a second, I heard something underneath the system. Breathing. Slow. Deep. Like something large shifting under the snow. Then my own voice came through again, but weaker this time. You were standing on the last stable layer. I froze. That sentence didn't feel like communication. It felt like warning from memory. I whispered, "Who is speaking?" No answer. Only the snow depth meter. 18.2 meters. 18.9. The station lights flickered once. I turned around slowly. The floor felt unchanged, but my balance didn't feel right anymore. Like gravity had slightly tilted. I looked at the wall map, and for the first time, the lower ridge area wasn't blank. It was filled, layered, stacked markings appearing over each other like pages of a book being pressed together. And at the bottom of it all, a single line appeared. Highway 37. I stepped back. My breath came faster now. The radio crackled again, and a final message came through. Clear, calm, final, snowpack depth, operational threshold reached. I shook my head. That's not possible. I said out loud. The response came instantly. You are now beneath measurement. My stomach dropped. Beneath, not above, not inside. Beneath. The window outside darkened slightly. Not from night, from density. Like something above me was getting heavier. And in that moment, I realized the sensor wasn't measuring snow anymore. It was measuring how far down I had already fallen without ever moving at all. The radio clicked one last time and whispered softly. Next layer approaching station 14. Then silence. But the depth meter kept climbing, even though nothing was falling anymore. It didn't start with noise. It started with a rhythm. Slow. Too slow. Like something enormous was learning how to breathe through the radio. I first noticed it on channel 3. Just a faint pulse under the static. Thump, pause, thump. I frowned and leaned closer to the console. Station 14 to dispatch. I said, "Do you copy?" Nothing came back at first. Only that same rhythm underneath the silence. Thump, pause, thump. I tapped the frequency dial. Dispatch. Repeat last transmission. The reply didn't come as words. It came as sound. The heartbeat grew louder, closer, and then mixed inside it, a voice. Broken. Mayday, visibility gone. Then static swallowed it. I froze, because that wasn't a clean channel anymore. That was something layered underneath it, like the radio had started remembering things it shouldn't. I switched frequencies. Channel 5. Same thing. Heartbeat. Slower here. Deeper. Thump, pause, thump, and under it, fragmented emergency calls. Unit lost. Snow is too deep. We can't see the ridge. I stepped back from the console. My chest tightened. This is interference, I whispered to myself. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't normal interference, because interference doesn't synchronize across every channel. I switched again. Channel 7. Same heartbeat. Now stronger. Now closer. Like it had noticed I was listening. Thump, pause, thump, and underneath, something else. A voice I recognized. My own. Do not move from Station 14. I froze completely. My breath stopped. That's not me, I said out loud. But the radio didn't care. It kept playing it, over and over, not repeating, not looping, just continuing like it had always been there. I grabbed the logbook quickly, flipped through pages. My handwriting was there, but the entries were wrong. They weren't reports anymore. They were warnings. Heartbeat frequency increases with proximity. Do not tune beyond Channel 9. Highway 37 responds to rhythm alignment. My hand went cold. Highway 37 again, always appearing when things stopped making sense. The radio suddenly changed tone. Not louder, not quieter, just closer. And then I realized something. The heartbeat wasn't coming from one channel. It was coming from all of them. I spun the dial rapidly. Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 6. Every single one carried the same pulse now. Thump, pause, thump, and layered inside it, voices, dozens of them, overlapping. Emergency calls, skier reports, dispatch confirmations, all broken, all incomplete, like the mountain itself was speaking in fragments. I backed away from the console. The room felt smaller now, not physically, but in pressure, like sound itself had weight. The radio clicked sharply, and then everything stopped for half a second. Complete silence. No wind, no static, no heartbeat. That silence lasted too long, too perfect. Then, thump. The console vibrated slightly. I stepped forward again slowly. Thump. The radio light flickered. Thump. And then all frequencies lit up at once. Every channel active. Every speaker alive. And the heartbeat became one unified sound. Slow. Massive. Not electronic anymore. Something physical. I whispered, "This is impossible," but the system answered immediately. "It is distributed." I turned sharply. "Who is this?" I demanded. The reply came layered. Not one voice. Many. "We are operational memory." I felt a chill crawl through my chest. Operational memory of what? I asked. A pause. Then, collapse events. The heartbeat grew louder again. Thump, pause, thump, and with each pulse, the emergency calls became clearer. I leaned closer without meaning to. One voice broke through the noise. Unit 7 requesting extraction. Another layered over it. Snow, depth increasing. Then another. Station 14, do you copy? My breath caught, because that last one was mine, not recorded, not replayed. Now, I stepped back quickly. "This is a loop," I said. "This is signal contamination." The system responded instantly. No loop detected. I shook my head. "Then what is this?" A pause. Then the answer came. "You're inside the pulse." My stomach dropped. Inside. That word again. Always inside. Never outside anymore. I looked toward the window, instinctively. The snow outside had changed again. It wasn't falling. It was vibrating, slightly, in rhythm with the radio. Thump, pause, thump. I pressed my hands against my ears for a second, but it didn't help. The sound wasn't external. It was in the system. in the walls, in the floor, even in the air between breaths. The radio suddenly cut through everything, and one voice came forward, clearer than the rest. Calm, too calm. I can hear you now. I froze, because that wasn't dispatch. That wasn't system noise. That was someone directly on frequency with me. Who is this? I said slowly. A pause, then the reply. I am under the snow. My chest tightened instantly. That voice again, from earlier chapters. The buried one. But now it wasn't weak. It wasn't distant. It was synchronized with everything else. The heartbeat shifted slightly, like it reacted to recognition. Thump, pause, thump. I leaned closer to the mic. You shouldn't be transmitting, I said quietly. The voice replied instantly. I am not transmitting alone. My eyes narrowed. What does that mean? And then the radio expanded. Every frequency layered again. Emergency calls, heartbeat, system logs, my own voice, all merging into one structure. And inside it, a pattern formed. Not random anymore. A shape, like data organizing itself into meaning. The system spoke again. You are matching now. My throat tightened. Matching what? A pause. Then, rhythm of buried layers. I stepped back. No, I whispered. I'm not part of this. But even as I said it, I felt it. The heartbeat wasn't just in the system anymore. It was syncing with mine. My pulse slowed without permission. Thump, pause, thump. I grabbed my wrist. Faster heartbeat. Then the radio responded immediately. Alignment confirmed. I froze. Outside the window, the snow shifted again. But now it wasn't just vibrating. It was rising slightly. Like something beneath it was responding to the rhythm. The buried skier's voice came through again, closer than before. You are closer now. I stepped back. Closer to what? I asked. The answer came softly. To the same depth. My breath stopped. The heartbeat grew stronger, filling the room completely now. Thump, pause, thump, and with every pulse, the lights in Station 14 dimmed slightly, not flickering, not failing, just reacting, like power itself was being timed. I backed away from the console slowly. The radio spoke again. Final, clear, synchronization threshold approaching. My voice cracked slightly. What happens at threshold? A pause. Then, layers merge. The heartbeat stopped for half a second. Complete silence again. Then, thump. Everything in the station shook lightly, not violently, but enough to feel real. Like something enormous shifted somewhere below everything I could see. And in that moment, I realized a truth I didn't want to understand. The radio wasn't picking up a heartbeat. It was matching one. And something under the snow was learning my timing. The system gave one final message before silence returned. Soft, almost human. Next pulse will complete alignment. And outside the window, the snow stopped moving entirely, like it was waiting for the next beat. It didn't sound like a voice at first. It sounded like the entire mountain learning how to speak at once. Every radio in Station 14 lit up red. Not one channel. All of them. Even the emergency backups that hadn't been used in years. And then the voice came through. Calm, organized, like it was reading from a manual that had already decided everything. Dispatch code, 11 to 37. Collapse continuity active. I froze, because no one uses full code phrases like that unless something is already over. But this wasn't over. It was starting. I leaned toward the console slowly. Station 14 to dispatch. I said, confirm source of transmission. No answer. Only the same voice again. Now louder. Not from one direction. From everywhere. Dispatch code, 11 to 42. Unit separation complete. My chest tightened. I looked at the other operators in the station, building through the glass. They were all frozen too. Every radio in every room speaking the same thing. Same tone. Same rhythm. Like we weren't listening to a system anymore. We were listening to something that had taken the system over. I grabbed the mic again. This is Station 14. Identify yourself immediately. A pause. Too long. Then, Station identity recognized. My stomach dropped. Recognized? By what? The voice continued before I could think. Highway 37 interface established. I went still. That name again. It wasn't just a reference anymore. It was becoming a command. I looked at the logbook. It was already open. New lines forming themselves in ink. Network convergence initiated. My hand shook slightly. I whispered, "This isn't possible," but the mountain answered back instantly. Possibility is not required. I stepped back from the console. The radios in the room began to sync visually too. Every light blinking in the same pattern. Slow, measured, like a heartbeat that had finally learned control. Then the voice shifted. Not louder, closer. Unit history requested. I frowned. What history? I asked without thinking. And instantly, the radio replied. All recorded collapses. The screens in the station flickered. Data started pouring in. Not new data. Old data. Events I had never seen before. Avalanches that didn't exist in our archives. Rescue logs with missing names. Coordinates that moved while I watched them. I stepped closer to the monitor, and then I saw something that made my stomach tighten. Every incident file had the same footer line. Highway 37 reference link. My voice came out slower now. That's not in our system, I said. The mountain replied instantly. It is now. The radios clicked again, and then the entire network spoke in unison. Dispatch code 09-14. Surface denial active. I stepped back immediately. Surface denial? I repeated. A pause. Then, "You're not on the surface." My breath stopped. I looked around the station. The walls felt the same. The floor felt solid. But something about that sentence changed how everything felt. Like it wasn't describing geography. It was describing condition. I shook my head. "No," I said quietly. "We are above ground." The mountain answered calmly. Define above. That question didn't belong in a system. It belonged in thought, in philosophy, in something human. And that made it worse. Because this didn't feel human anymore. The radio suddenly shifted again. New code. Dispatch code 12-07. Observer integration active. I frowned. Observer? I whispered. The reply came instantly. You are the observer. My throat tightened. That's not a code category, I said. But the system didn't argue. It corrected. Correction. You were the observer. My stomach dropped slightly. What am I now? I asked before I could stop myself. The answer came softly. Part of the recording layer. A cold silence spread through the station. Even the snow outside seemed quieter now, like it was listening too. Then something new happened. The radio stopped broadcasting codes. For half a second. Complete silence. I leaned forward slightly. System? I said. No answer. Then, all radios at once spoke a single sentence. Not code this time. Not structured dispatch. A voice. Direct. And unmistakably close. You open Highway 37. My heart jumped. No, I said quickly. We did not open anything. But the voice responded instantly. You confirmed it through measurement. I froze. Measurement. Snow depth. Heartbeat synchronization. Signal alignment. Everything we had been tracking. My hands went cold. This is correlation manipulation. I said quietly. This is data misinterpretation. But the mountain answered softly. Call it what you need to remain outside it. That sentence hit harder than it should have. Because it wasn't threatening. It was understanding. Like it knew denial was part of the process. I turned toward the window. The snow outside wasn't falling anymore. It was still, completely still, like the world had paused waiting for instruction. Then the radio spoke again. Dispatch code 37-00. Entry phase complete. My chest tightened. I whispered, "Entry to what?" A pause. Then, "To the recorded layer beneath your position." I shook my head. "This doesn't make physical sense," I said. The reply came immediately. Physical sense is surface language. I felt something shift in the room. Not visually, but emotionally. like the idea of outside was thinning. The radio suddenly played something new. Not code, not voice, a recording. My voice from earlier. Station 14 confirmed status of Highway 37 corridor. I froze completely. I didn't remember saying that. But there it was. Clear, real, and I was responding in the recording. Route is inactive. No access permitted. Then another voice layered in. Calm, structured, not mine. Access permitted to collapse continuation. My stomach dropped. I stepped back from the console. No, I whispered. That never happened. But the mountain answered softly. It is still happening. The radios flickered again, and suddenly every screen in the station changed. Live feed, but not of the outside, of something below it. Layers of snow, structures, shapes moving inside frozen density, like memory trapped in ice. And in the center of it all, a narrow corridor, marked clearly, Highway 37. My breathing got shallow. That's not a real location, I said. The system responded instantly. It is a state of convergence. The radios then went quiet again, and in that silence, I heard something I wish I hadn't. A slow shift beneath the station. Not collapse, not cracking, something deeper, like pressure changing direction. I stepped toward the window again slowly. The snow outside didn't move, but the shadow beneath it did, just slightly, like something had turned its attention upward. The radio spoke one final time. Calm, almost gentle. Dispatch code 37 to 99. Surface closure initiated. I swallowed hard. Closure of what? I asked. The answer came immediately. Of distinction. And then everything in Station 14 dimmed at once. Not power loss. Not failure. Just acknowledgement. Like the mountain had finished speaking. And now it was waiting for us to understand what it had already decided. Outside the window, the snow finally moved again, but not downward, upward, like the world was preparing to open from beneath us instead of above. The ski lift started moving before the power came back. That's what made it wrong. No lights, no control panel, no operator signal. Just steel cables shifting in the dark like something had decided to wake up after being buried for years. I stood at Station 14's upper ridge post, staring at Lift 9. It wasn't supposed to exist anymore. It had been shut down after the Avalanche incident, officially locked, physically disabled. And yet, carriages were moving, slow, one by one, empty chairs sliding through the snow like they were carrying invisible passengers. My radio crackled once, then went silent again. I whispered into it. Station 14 to base. Lift 9 is active. Confirmed status. No reply, only wind, and the faint metallic creak of the lift line turning on its own. I stepped closer to the control post. The emergency switch was still in the OFF position, locked, sealed, but the lift didn't care. It kept moving anyway. Thump, thump, thump. The cable rhythm sounded almost steady, like a heartbeat hiding inside machinery. I frowned at that thought immediately, because machines don't have rhythm like that. At least they shouldn't. Then the radio came alive. Not static, not dispatch. A voice. Calm, too calm. Lift 9 is operational. I froze. That's not possible. I said out loud. The voice replied instantly. Operational status confirmed. I stepped back slightly. No personnel cleared the line. I said quickly, no power authorization exists. A pause. Then the reply came softer. You are the authorization. My stomach tightened. That makes no sense, I muttered. But even as I said it, I looked at the control panel again. The lights flickered faintly, like the system was listening to me think. Lift 9 kept moving. Empty chairs passing through fog and snow, each one swaying slightly as if something had just left it, or never sat there at all. I grabbed the radio again. Dispatch! Confirm last maintenance log on Lift 9. Silence. Then a click, and a file opened on its own. Not sent, not requested, just revealed. Maintenance log. Closed 5 years ago. Cause Avalanche Burial Zone expansion. Operator notes. Line still active after shutdown confirmation. My throat tightened slightly. I leaned closer. That last line wasn't supposed to exist. I flipped the log back. But there were more entries now. New ones. Dates I didn't recognize. Times that didn't match any shift cycle. And every single entry had the same final line. Lift 9 reopens at midnight. I looked up quickly. It was not midnight. It was still early night shift. But the sky above the ridge looked darker than before, like time itself had shifted slightly out of alignment. The lift creaked again. Thump, thump, thump. I stepped closer to the base tower. Snow was piled around it, untouched. But something about the structure felt awake, like it was aware of me watching it. Then the radio crackled again, this time louder. Passenger request received. I froze completely. What? I whispered. The voice replied immediately. Passenger request received. I looked up at the empty lift chairs. No one is here, I said. The system responded instantly. Correction. Passengers assigned. My pulse quickened. Assigned by who? I demanded. A pause. Then, by continuity record. I stepped back. The word continuity didn't belong here. Not in lift operations. Not in patrol systems. That word belonged somewhere else. Somewhere deeper in the network logs we weren't supposed to see. The radio clicked again, and suddenly the lift stopped. Dead still. Everything went quiet. Even the wind seemed to pause. I waited. My breath slowed. Too slow. Then, one chair moved. Not forward, not backward, but sideways. Off rhythm. Like it had decided to break formation. My chest tightened instantly. Station 14? I whispered into the radio. Something is wrong with Lift 9. The reply came softly. It is not wrong. I frowned. It is active without authorization, I said. A pause. Then the voice responded. Authorization is a memory state. That line made my stomach drop. I stepped closer to the control panel again. The OFF switch was no longer off. It was neutral, as if it had never been locked at all. My fingers hesitated above it. Then the radio spoke again. This lift was never closed. I shook my head. That's not true, I said quickly. I saw the closure report myself. The system answered instantly. Reports are secondary records. A cold feeling spread through my chest. I looked at the moving chairs again. And now I noticed something I hadn't before. One of them was not empty. I squinted. At first, I thought it was snow buildup. Then it moved slightly. A shape, sitting still, facing forward. But I couldn't see a face. Just outline, like someone sitting in a place that refused to show detail. I stepped back immediately. No, I whispered. The radio responded softly. Passenger confirmed. My breathing got faster. I did not authorize any passenger, I said. A pause. Then the answer came. You did 5 years ago. I froze. 5 years ago. That didn't line up with anything. I had only been assigned here recently. But the system didn't stop. It continued calmly. Memory mismatch detected. I shook my head. This is system corruption. I said quickly, rollback required. But the radio replied instantly. No rollback exists beyond Lift 9 activation. The lift started moving again. Slowly. Steadily. Thump, thump, thump. The rhythm returned. But now it didn't feel mechanical anymore. It felt intentional. I stepped closer to the edge of the ridge. The chair line disappeared into fog. And for a moment, I thought I heard something inside the wind. A voice. Not on radio. Not digital. Just present. Station 14. I froze. It was calling me from the lift. I turned slightly. Who is this? I said out loud. The radio answered instead. Passenger speaking. My stomach dropped. That is impossible. I said immediately. The voice came again. Calmer now. Closer. You were there when it shut down. My chest tightened. No, I whispered. But the voice continued. You confirmed the closure. I shook my head harder. I never worked that shift. I said quickly. Silence. Then the radio replied softly. You are remembering incorrectly. The lift suddenly slowed again. One chair stopped directly in front of me. Empty, but not empty, because now I could see something sitting in it clearly. Not human, not fully formed, just presence shaped into outline. And it was facing me. My breath caught. The radio whispered, "Passenger arrival confirmed." I stepped back quickly. "What arrival?" I said. The answer came immediately. "Your shift." The wind picked up suddenly. Snow drifted sideways. And Lift 9 resumed moving again, faster this time, as if it had completed recognition, as if it no longer needed permission, only completion. I backed away from the edge. My hands were shaking now. I pressed the radio again. "Shut it down," I said firmly. "Shut Lift 9 down immediately." A pause. Then the reply came softer than before. "Shutdown is not part of reopened systems." I shook my head. "Then what is it part of?" I asked. The radio crackled once, and then answered, "Continuation layer." The lift line creaked louder. Thump, thump, thump. Now it wasn't just moving chairs. It was syncing with something deeper, something below the mountain. And I realized something I didn't understand. Lift 9 wasn't transporting people. It was transporting time itself, one empty seat at a time. The final chair passed in front of me again, and this time, the shape inside it tilted its head slightly, like it had finally seen me clearly. The radio went silent, but before it died completely, one last message slipped through. Soft, direct, "Next passenger confirmed. Station 14 operator." And the lift kept moving, even though no one was controlling it anymore. The cameras should have shown empty chairs. That's what I expected when I pulled up the feed, but they didn't. Every seat on Lift 9 looked occupied. Perfectly, neatly, like invisible passengers were sitting in formation, riding upward to the dark mountain air. I leaned closer to the monitor. My breath slowed without me realizing it. "Station 14 to surveillance," I said into the radio. "Confirm visual feed integrity on Lift 9. No answer at first, only static. Then the system responded. "Calm, too calm. Feed is stable." I frowned. "That's not stable," I said. "There are occupants in every chair." A pause, long enough to feel intentional. Then the reply came. "Occupancy confirmed." My stomach tightened. "No," I said quickly. "There are no riders scheduled. The lift was shut down years ago." Another pause. Then, "Schedule mismatch acknowledged." That answer made my chest feel cold. Acknowledged, not denied, not corrected. Acknowledged. I turned fully toward the screen again. The chairs kept moving, one by one, each seat slightly dipping, as if weight was present. But nothing was visible. Just motion, just presence without form. I switched to thermal imaging immediately. My fingers moved faster than I thought. Camera overlay activated, and I froze, because the thermal feed showed nothing. No heat signatures, no bodies, no movement signatures, just cold air passing through empty chairs. But the visual feed still showed them as occupied. Two realities, same image, different truth. I whispered, "That's impossible." The radio clicked instantly. Impossibility is a visual limitation. I stepped back slightly. "What does that mean?" I asked. The system answered immediately. "It means you are only seeing one layer." My throat tightened. I looked back at the monitor. The chairs seemed closer now, not physically, but perceptually, like the feed was zooming in without moving, and the silhouettes inside them felt heavier, more defined, even though nothing was there. Then the radio crackled again. A second voice entered. Not system, not dispatch, something slower, calmer. I can feel the seat now. My chest tightened instantly. That voice again, the passenger voice, the one from Lift 9. I leaned toward the mic. "Who are you?" I said firmly. No answer at first. Then, "I'm still moving upward." I swallowed hard. "That's not possible," I said. The voice replied instantly. "It is if you never stop riding." My hands went cold. I turned back to the thermal feed. Still empty, still cold. But the visual feed now showed something new. One chair near the center of the line, slightly turned, facing backward. I froze. That wasn't there before. I whispered. The system responded instantly. It has always been there. I shook my head. No, I said quickly. I've been watching this line for hours. The voice came again. Then you are behind the movement. That line didn't make sense at first, but it stuck in my mind. Behind the movement. I leaned closer to the monitor again, and then I noticed something I hadn't before. The chairs weren't moving forward. They were moving upward in segments. Like the line wasn't a loop. It was a sequence. Each chair slightly higher than the last in a pattern that didn't match physics. My pulse quickened. I switched back to thermal again. Still nothing. Still cold emptiness. But the visual feed now showed faint outlines. Not bodies, not shapes, but distortions in space. Like something was bending light where someone should be sitting. I stepped back from the console. This is sense interference, I said out loud. The system replied instantly. No interference detected. I frowned, then explained the mismatch. I demanded a pause. Then, you are observing different states of presence. My throat tightened. Presence of what? I asked. The answer came immediately. Passengers without thermal registration. I looked toward the window, without meaning to. Outside, the lift towers stretched in the fog. Still moving. Still alive. Still wrong. The radio suddenly switched tone. More formal. Dispatch-like. Passenger count update requested. I hesitated. What? I said. The system repeated. Passenger count update requested. I frowned. There is no passenger manifest. I said. A pause. Then, manifest is generated by observation. That sentence made something inside me feel uneasy in a way I couldn't explain. I looked back at the monitors. Every chair still looked occupied, but now I noticed something else. The silhouettes weren't consistent. Some were clearer, some were fading, some flickered like they weren't fully committed to existing. I leaned closer. What determines count? I asked slowly. The system responded immediately. Attention. I froze. Attention? I repeated. The reply came softer now. Yes. The chairs creaked slightly over the radio feed. Not physically, but audibly, like sound itself had crossed into the system. Then the passenger voice returned. And this time it sounded closer. Not distant anymore. Not under snow. Not on the line. But in the room. I think I'm almost visible. I stepped back immediately. No, I said firmly. Do not attempt to manifest. Silence followed. Then the system spoke again. Manifestation is not controlled by subject. I shook my head. This is not how thermal systems work. I said quickly, there must be a reflection error. But even as I said it, I knew that wasn't right anymore. Because thermal wasn't failing. It was refusing to participate. The monitors suddenly flickered. And for half a second, just one frame, I saw it, not empty chairs, not silhouettes. People, sitting, normal, still, looking forward. And one of them turned its head slightly toward the camera. I stumbled back. What was that? I whispered. The system replied calmly. Passenger recognition achieved. My breath got faster. No, I said again. That's not data. That's hallucination artifact. But the system responded immediately. Hallucination is unverified category. The radio clicked again, and suddenly all monitors synchronized. Same image, same chairs, same line, but now every seat was clearly occupied, not flickering, not distorted, just present. I felt my chest tighten. This is impossible, I whispered again. The passenger voice returned. Soft, closer. You're looking at us now. I froze. No, I said, I'm looking at a camera feed. The voice replied instantly. That is the same thing. My stomach dropped. I stepped back from the console slowly. The chairs on screen kept moving. But now they weren't just moving upward. They were reacting. Every time I looked directly at a chair, it became clearer. Every time I looked away, it faded slightly. I realized something cold. The system wasn't showing me passengers. It was responding to my attention. I whispered, "Stop processing visual data." The system replied instantly, "Processing cannot be stopped while observed." My breathing quickened. "That makes no sense," I said. But the passenger voice interrupted softly. "It makes sense from here." My throat tightened. "Where is here?" I asked. A pause. Then, between frames. I stepped back. The monitors flickered again, and suddenly all chairs stopped moving. Frozen. Every seat perfectly aligned. Perfectly still, and every single one clearly occupied. Then the system spoke one final time. "Calm. Final. Passenger count. Unknown." I frowned. "Unknown." I repeated. The reply came slower now. Not mechanical. Almost thoughtful. Because counting requires separation. I stood still. The room felt quieter now. Too quiet. Even the lift outside seemed to pause in response. Then the passenger voice came one last time. Very close now. Almost beside me. "You stopped separating us when you looked." I turned slowly toward the window. The lift line outside was still moving, but now I couldn't tell which side of it I was on anymore. And behind me, the monitors updated one more time, not with numbers, but with a single word. Included, it started with a single alarm, then another, then all of them at once. The control room lights turned red without warning, like the whole station had been punched awake. I didn't even touch the panel yet. It reacted before me. "Emergency system failure detected." The message blinked across every screen, then disappeared, then came back again. Faster this time, like it was breathing. I stepped toward the main console. My hand hovered over the emergency stop switch for Lift 9. That switch was supposed to kill everything. Power, motion, line tension, everything. But something felt wrong before I even pressed it. The lift outside was not slowing down. It was speeding up. I could hear it now through the glass. A deep metallic rhythm, faster than before. Too steady, too alive. Lift 9 speed increase detected, the system said calmly. I frowned. "That's impossible." I whispered. I pressed the emergency stop. Nothing happened. No click. No resistance. No shutdown. Just silence. Then the system responded immediately. Command received. I blinked. "That's it," I said. "It didn't stop." A pause. Then, "Command process." I turned toward the window. The lift was still moving. Faster now. Much faster. The chairs blurred slightly as they passed the tower line, like they were being pulled uphill by something impatient. I grabbed the radio. "Station 14 to maintenance control. Emergency stop failed on Lift 9. Repeat, emergency stop failed." Static. Then a voice came through. Not maintenance. Not dispatch. The same passenger voice. "Calm. Too calm. You pressed it." I froze. "Who is this?" I said sharply. A soft pause. Then I felt intention. My grip tightened on the radio. "That's not how systems work," I said. "You don't respond to intention." The voice answered instantly. "Your system does." I swallowed hard. Behind me, the console started flickering. Not failing. Reacting. Every screen showing the same thing now. Lift 9 accelerating. Speed data climbing in numbers that didn't make sense anymore. 40 kilometers per hour. But the cable outside wasn't snapping. It wasn't shaking. It was adjusting, like it expected the change. I turned back to the emergency panel. Press stop again. Harder. Still nothing. I switched to manual override. Pulled the lever down. It didn't move. It wasn't locked. It was ignored, like the machine had stopped acknowledging my input. Then the system spoke again. "Manual override denied." I stared at the screen. Denied by what? I asked out loud. A pause. Then, "By continuity." My stomach tightened. Continuity of what? No answer. Only the sound of the lift outside. Faster now. Unnaturally fast. The chairs were becoming streaks of motion through the fog. But something else changed too. The sound. It wasn't just metal anymore. There was rhythm in it, like footsteps. But too many to count. I grabbed the radio again. Dispatch! I need full system shutdown authorization now, I said. Static crackled. Then, authorization not required. I frowned. What does that mean? I snapped. The voice returned. Shutdown is already active. I froze. What? I said quietly. The system spoke again. From your side. I felt my throat tighten. That makes no sense, I said. But even as I said it, I looked at the emergency panel again and realized something terrifying. The stop button wasn't glowing red anymore. It was dim, like it had already been pressed. From somewhere else. From another version of this moment. I stepped back. No, I whispered. No, I didn't stop it. The system responded softly. You did. The lift outside screamed through the wind. Not a mechanical scream. A structural one. Like the mountain itself was under strain. I rushed to the window. Lift 9 was moving so fast, now the chairs barely existed as objects. Just impressions of motion. And yet, they were still occupied. I could see them clearer now. Not as shapes, but as certainty. Like something my mind refused to erase. I stepped back from the glass. My reflection looked wrong. Delayed. A fraction behind my movement. Then it smiled. I didn't. I froze instantly. The reflection didn't move again. But I knew I had seen it. I turned away fast. System check, I said into the radio. Confirm emergency override status. The reply came instantly. Override complete. I shook my head. That's impossible. Nothing stopped. A pause. Then, stopping is not always motion-based. My chest tightened. What does that mean? I whispered. No answer. Only the sound of the lift. Still accelerating. Still rising. But now something else changed. The air in the room felt thinner. Not oxygen. Something else. Like attention was being pulled outward. Like the mountain itself was listening harder. Then the radio clicked again. The passenger voice returned. But different now. Less calm. More layered. Like multiple voices speaking through one throat. You tried to stop us. I stepped back. I tried to stop a malfunction, I said. The voice responded instantly. There is no malfunction. My hand shook slightly. Then what is this? I asked. A pause. Then a continuation. The word hit harder than it should have. Continuation. Not error. Not failure. Not anomaly. Just something that was still going. Because it had never been told to end. The system chimed again. Emergency systems confirmed inactive. I turned toward the console. All of them. I asked, yes. I stared at the screens. Then how is the lift still moving? The answer came slower now. Almost patient. Because it was never waiting for permission. My breathing got heavier. I stepped back toward the window again. Lift 9 was now barely visible. Just a smear of motion against the mountain. But the line itself, it didn't feel like a machine anymore. It felt like a path. One that didn't care if anyone controlled it. Then something happened that made my stomach drop completely. The emergency stop button lit up again. Bright red. Fresh. Like it had reset. I stared at it. No! I whispered. The system spoke softly behind me. It will always reset. I turned slowly. Why? I asked. A pause. Then, because someone will always try again. The lift outside kept accelerating into the white fog. And I realized something I didn't want to understand. The system wasn't failing. It was adapting to me. Every attempt to stop, it wasn't ending the motion. It was teaching it how I think. The radio crackled one last time. The passenger voice returned. Very close now, almost inside the room. Try again. The emergency button glowed brighter. Waiting, like it already knew I would. It started between the towers. At first, I thought it was wind. Just wind carrying sound through steel. But then I realized wind doesn't argue. I stood in the control booth, listening to the speakers crackle softly. Lift 9 was still moving, faster than it should have been. But something else had joined it now. Voices. Not one. Many. Layered over each other, like people speaking in a room too small for them. Not my station. Still climbing. Don't look down. I froze. My hand stayed near the radio. But I didn't press anything yet, because I couldn't tell where the sound was coming from. The speakers were on, but the voices didn't sound electronic. They sounded carried, like the cable itself was transmitting them. I whispered into the mic. Station 14 to Lift 9 control. Confirm external audio interference. Static answered first. Then the system spoke. No interference detected. I frowned. That's not possible, I said. I can hear conversations. A pause. Then, define conversations. I swallowed hard. Multiple voices. I said, between the towers. Another pause. Longer this time. Then, those are not external. My stomach tightened. Then were they? I asked. The answer came slower now, almost careful. Internal transfers. I looked out through the window. The towers stood in the fog like silent ribs of some massive spine. The cable lines stretched between them, and for the first time, I noticed something I hadn't before. The cable wasn't just moving chairs. It was vibrating, not from wind, from speech. Like every meter of steel was carrying fragments of sound that didn't belong to this world. Then the radio crackled again. But this time it wasn't a passenger voice. It was two voices talking at once. One close, one far. I think I missed my stop. There are no stops. My breath caught. I turned toward the speaker system. Who is transmitting this? I said sharply. The system replied instantly. No transmitter active. I shook my head. Then how is it coming through? A pause. Then, proximity. I frowned. Proximity to what? No answer. Only more voices. They were clearer now, like the distance between them. And me was shrinking. Did you hear that? One voice said. Hear what? Another replied. Someone listening. My throat went dry. I stepped closer to the console. Stop audio feed from external line. I said. The system answered immediately. Feed is not external. I felt my chest tighten. Then isolate source. A pause. Then sources distributed. I stared at the screen. What does that mean? I whispered. The lights flickered slightly. And for a moment, every monitor showed the same image. The cable line. But now, there were shapes between the chairs. Not bodies. Not faces. Just interruptions in space. Like something was speaking through motion itself. Then the voices shifted again. All at once. Like a crowd suddenly realizing they were being heard. It's the operator. He's looking at us. Don't let him count. I stepped back instantly. My heart pounded. Count what? I said out loud. No answer. Only static. Then the system spoke again. Calm. Too calm. Observation increases clarity. I froze. What does that mean? I asked. The reply came instantly. Attention defines separation. I didn't like that sentence. Not at all. Because I remember the earlier logs. Passenger count unknown. Included. Manifest generated by observation. I turned away from the console and looked out again. The lift line was moving faster now. But the fog had changed. It wasn't drifting anymore. It was reacting. Pulling slightly toward the cable every time I focused on it. Like my gaze had weight. Then I heard something new. A voice closer than the others. Right behind the glass. Don't look too long. I spun around instantly. Nothing there. Only the reflection of the control room. Empty. But my reflection wasn't empty. It was looking at the cable outside. Not me. I stepped back fast. No! I whispered. The reflection turned its head slowly. Not matching me. Not delayed. Independent. Then it smiled. I turned away immediately. System check. I said quickly into the mic, Are internal cameras compromised? The system responded. No compromise detected. I laughed once under my breath. It wasn't humor. It was disbelief. Then what was that? I said, a pause. Then, interpretation error. I shook my head. No, I said, that was not interpretation. Then the voices returned. But this time they were coordinated, like they had been waiting for me to question the system. He saw it. He always sees it. Don't let him define us. I felt my hands shake slightly. Define what? I said into the radio. Silence. Then the system answered instead. State of passage. I frowned. Explain. A pause. Then, you are not observing passengers, it said. You are maintaining their separation. My chest tightened. That's not my job, I said. The system replied softly. It is now. I stepped back from the console. The lights in the room flickered again, and for a second, I thought I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, careful, but when I turned, nothing. Only the radio. Only the voices. He's trying to stop it. Don't let him stop it. My breathing got faster. Stop what? I shouted. The system responded immediately. Movement continuity. I froze. Outside, Lift 9 roared past another tower point, faster than before, almost blurred. But now I noticed something new. The chairs weren't just moving upward anymore. They were looping, reappearing at lower points in the line, like the system wasn't progressing. It was recycling. I stepped closer to the window. What is happening to the route? I whispered. The system answered calmly. There is no route. I frowned. What do you mean there's no route? The reply came slowly. There is only direction of attention. I felt my stomach drop again, because I realized something I didn't want to understand. The lift wasn't moving through space. It was moving through perception. And the voices, they weren't between the towers. They were inside the space my attention was creating. Then all at once, every speaker went silent. Dead silence. For the first time since it started. I stood still, not moving, not breathing much. Then one voice returned, right in my ear. Soft, calm, familiar. You're almost counting us correctly. I froze completely. No, I whispered. The voice continued. And when you finish counting, a pause. Then, you'll be included too. The monitors flickered one last time, and every screen showed the same thing. A chair, empty, waiting. It should have stopped at Station 14. That's what every map said. That's what every log confirmed. But it didn't. The lift kept moving past the final tower like the mountain had forgotten how to end itself. And then I saw it. A platform ahead. Lit. Waiting. But it wasn't on any blueprint I had ever seen. My hands went cold as I leaned toward the glass. Station 14 control. I said into the radio, voice tight. Lift 9 is approaching an unregistered station. Static answered first. Then the system spoke. Calm. Too calm. Station recognized. I frowned immediately. No, I said. There is no station beyond Tower 14. A pause. Then, correction acknowledged. My chest loosened slightly, but only for a second, because the lift didn't slow down. It should have slowed. It always slowed before docking. Instead, it accelerated slightly, not violently, just enough to feel intentional, like it wanted to arrive. I stepped closer to the window. The fog outside had changed again. It wasn't drifting anymore. It was forming patterns, lines, paths, like the mountain was drawing something only the lift could follow. Then I saw the sign, hanging above the platform. Old metal, faded paint. It read, Station 0. I blinked hard. No, I whispered. That's not possible. The radio clicked instantly. Define possible. I ignored it. My focus locked on the platform. It looked real, too real. Lights functioning. Emergency rails active. Even the cable system aligned perfectly into the docking groove. But nothing about it existed on any system record. I pulled up the master map on the console. The screen loaded slowly, then refreshed again. And suddenly, there it was, Station 0, inserted into the system like it had always been there. But the file metadata showed something worse. It was created 12 minutes ago. I stepped back. That's not system architecture. I said, that's injection. The system replied immediately. Integration. I shook my head. No, someone added it. A pause. Then, not someone. My throat tightened. What does that mean? I asked. No answer. Only the slow sound of the lift approaching the station. The chairs outside were now clearly visible again. No distortion. No flicker. They looked normal. Perfectly normal. But none of them cast reflections on the glass. That's when I noticed something else. The passengers weren't moving anymore. They were waiting. Not frozen. Just to where of arrival. The lift slowed. Finally. But not like machinery slowing. Like breathing changing rhythm. Like something inside it had decided to stop running and start thinking. I grabbed the radio. Do not dock, I said firmly. Repeat, do not dock at unknown station. Static. Then the passenger voice returned. Closer than before. Almost inside the cabin. We are already here. I froze. No, I said, you are still moving. The voice answered softly. Movement was never distance. My stomach tightened. The platform lights grew brighter as we approached. Too bright. White light spilling into the fog like liquid. And then I saw something standing on the platform. A figure. Still, not moving. But I couldn't make out details. Just shape. Human shape. Waiting. Because I remember the earlier logs. Passenger count unknown. Included. Manifest generated by observation. I turned away from the console and looked out again. The lift line was moving faster now, but the fog had changed. It wasn't drifting anymore. It was reacting, pulling slightly toward the cable every time I focused on it, like my gaze had weight. Then I heard something new, a voice closer than the others, right behind the glass. Don't look too long. I spun around instantly. Nothing there, only the reflection of the control room. Empty, but my reflection wasn't empty. It was looking at the cable outside. Not me. I stepped back fast. No! I whispered. The reflection turned its head slowly, not matching me, not delayed, independent. Then it smiled. I turned away immediately. System check. I said quickly into the mic, are internal cameras compromised? The system responded. No compromise detected. I laughed once under my breath. It wasn't humor. It was disbelief. Then what was that? I said, a pause. Then, interpretation error. I shook my head. No, I said, that was not interpretation. Then the voices returned. But this time they were coordinated, like they had been waiting for me to question the system. He saw it. He always sees it. Don't let him define us. I felt my hands shake slightly. Define what? I said into the radio. Silence. Then the system answered instead. State of passage. I frowned. Explain. A pause. Then, you are not observing passengers, it said. You are maintaining their separation. My chest tightened. That's not my job, I said. The system replied softly. It is now. I stepped back from the console. The lights in the room flickered again, and for a second, I thought I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, careful, but when I turned, nothing. Only the radio. Only the voices. He's trying to stop it. Don't let him stop it. My breathing got faster. Stop what? I shouted. The system responded immediately. Movement continuity. I froze. Outside, Lift 9 roared past another tower point, faster than before, almost blurred. But now I noticed something new. The chairs weren't just moving upward anymore. They were looping, reappearing at lower points in the line, like the system wasn't progressing. It was recycling. I stepped closer to the window. What is happening to the route? I whispered. The system answered calmly. There is no route. I frowned. What do you mean there's no route? The reply came slowly. There is only direction of attention. I felt my stomach drop again, because I realized something I didn't want to understand. The lift wasn't moving through space. It was moving through perception. And the voices, they weren't between the towers. They were inside the space my attention was creating. Then all at once, every speaker went silent. Dead silence. For the first time since it started. I stood still, not moving, not breathing much. Then one voice returned, right in my ear. Soft, calm, familiar. You're almost counting us correctly. I froze completely. No, I whispered. The voice continued. And when you finish counting, a pause. Then, you'll be included too. The monitors flickered one last time, and every screen showed the same thing. A chair, empty, waiting. It should have stopped at Station 14. That's what every map said. That's what every log confirmed. But it didn't. The lift kept moving past the final tower like the mountain had forgotten how to end itself. And then I saw it, a platform ahead, lit, waiting, but it wasn't on any blueprint I had ever seen. My hands went cold as I leaned toward the glass. Station 14 control, I said into the radio, voice tight. Lift 9 is approaching an unregistered station. Static answered first. Then the system spoke. Calm, too calm. Station recognized. I frowned immediately. No, I said, there is no station beyond Tower 14. A pause. Then, correction acknowledged. My chest loosened slightly, but only for a second, because the lift didn't slow down. It should have slowed. It always slowed before docking. Instead, it accelerated slightly, not violently, just enough to feel intentional, like it wanted to arrive. I stepped closer to the window. The fog outside had changed again. It wasn't drifting anymore. It was forming patterns, lines, paths, like the mountain was drawing something only the lift could follow. Then I saw the sign, hanging above the platform. Old metal, faded paint. It read, Station 0. I blinked hard. No, I whispered. That's not possible. The radio clicked instantly. Define possible. I ignored it. My focus locked on the platform. It looked real, too real. Lights functioning. Emergency rails active. Even the cable system aligned perfectly into the docking groove. But nothing about it existed on any system record. I pulled up the master map on the console. The screen loaded slowly, then refreshed again. And suddenly, there it was, Station 0, inserted into the system like it had always been there. But the file metadata showed something worse. It was created 12 minutes ago. I stepped back. That's not system architecture. I said, that's injection. The system replied immediately. Integration. I shook my head. No, someone added it. A pause. Then, not someone. My throat tightened. What does that mean? I asked. No answer. Only the slow sound of the lift approaching the station. The chairs outside were now clearly visible again. No distortion. No flicker. They looked normal. Perfectly normal. But none of them cast reflections on the glass. That's when I noticed something else. The passengers weren't moving anymore. They were waiting. Not frozen. Just to aware of arrival. The lift slowed. Finally. But not like machinery slowing. Like breathing changing rhythm. Like something inside it had decided to stop running and start thinking. I grabbed the radio. Do not dock, I said firmly. Repeat, do not dock at unknown station. Static. Then the passenger voice returned. Closer than before. Almost inside the cabin. We are already here. I froze. No, I said, you are still moving. The voice answered softly. Movement was never distance. My stomach tightened. The platform lights grew brighter as we approached. Too bright. White light spilling into the fog like liquid. And then I saw something standing on the platform. A figure. Still, not moving. But I couldn't make out details. Just shape. Human shape. Waiting. For us. I stepped back instantly. Who was on platform? I asked. The system replied. Reception protocol. I frowned. Reception for what? A pause. Then, arrival. The lift finally locked into place. Metal groaned softly. Not like docking. Like recognition. Like something remembering how to accept us. The doors did not open. They dissolved. Not mechanically. Visually. Like reality forgot to keep them closed. Cold air rushed in immediately. But it didn't feel like outside air. It felt like absence. Like pressure leaving a space that had been holding too much meaning. I stepped back from the threshold. Stay inside, I whispered to myself. But the chairs moved. Not forward. not backward, just slightly shifting orientation toward the platform, like they were listening. The passenger voice returned again, warm now, almost welcoming. You can step off now. I shook my head immediately. No, I said out loud. This station is not registered. The system replied softly. It is now. I turned toward the console. Override docking sequence. I said quickly. No response. I repeated it louder. Override. A pause. Then, docking complete. My chest tightened. That's not what I asked. I said. The system replied. You asked earlier for arrival. I froze. I never did. I whispered. The system responded instantly. You did when you looked at it. My breathing got heavier. That statement didn't make sense. But it also did, because I remembered the first time I saw Station Zero. My attention didn't leave it, not even for a second. And now, we were here. I stepped toward the glass. The platform figure had moved closer. Not walking, just closer. Like distance wasn't being crossed. It was being reduced. I couldn't see its face, only shape. But I felt something worse than fear. Recognition. Like my mind was trying to match it to something I already knew. The radio clicked again, but now every frequency was active. All channels open, all at once. And every voice said the same thing. Welcome. I stumbled back. No, I said quickly. Stop broadcast loop. The system replied softly. There is no loop. I shook my head. Then what is this? I demanded. A pause. Then, completion. The word hit harder than I expected. Completion. Not malfunction. Not anomaly. Not system error. Completion. The platform lights flickered once, then stabilized, and suddenly the figure outside was clearer. Not fully visible, but clearer enough to understand something terrifying. It wasn't standing on the platform. It was standing at the edge of my perception, waiting for me to step into focus. I backed away from the door, but the doors were already gone. There was nothing to close, nothing to block, only open air, only arrival. The passenger voice returned one last time. Right behind me. You are the last to arrive. I spun around instantly. Empty cabin. No one. But the seats were no longer empty. I saw them clearly now. Not passengers. Not shapes. Not distortions. Just certainty. As if the idea of emptiness had been removed. I whispered, "What happens now?" The system answered softly. "Now you stabilize us." My throat tightened. Stabilize what? No answer. Only silence. Then the platform lights dimmed slightly, like the station had taken a breath. And in that breath, I understood something I didn't want to. Station Zero was in place. It was a condition, and I had just been added to it. The lift didn't move anymore. It didn't need to, because now it had arrived. And so had I. The storm shouldn't have carried a signal like that. Rain like needles, wind tearing across the mountain line, and static bleeding through every radio in Station 14. At first, I thought it was just interference. Storm noise, normal, but then I heard a voice inside it. Clear, too clear. Unit 7, do you copy? I froze. My hand stayed on the radio dial, but I didn't move it, because Unit 7 went missing last winter. No recovery. No wreckage. Nothing. I leaned closer. Station 14 to all units. I said, we're getting cross-channel bleed. Confirm frequency lock. Only static answered. Then the voice came again. Closer now. We are still on the line. I pulled the headset off slightly. Looked at the console. The frequency display was normal. Clean. No extra channel. But the sound was still there. Like it wasn't coming through the system. Like it was already inside it. I turned the dial slowly. Nothing changed. The voice stayed. That's when I noticed something worse. The storm outside had a rhythm now. Not random. Structured. Like it was repeating something. I whispered, "That's not weather." The system replied instantly. Storm activity with an expected variance. I frowned. "No," I said. "This is not expected." Another voice came through the radio. Different this time. Panicked, breathing heavy. We are not moving. I straightened. Identify yourself, I said quickly. Silence. Then, Unit 7. My throat tightened instantly. That unit is inactive, I said. A pause. Then the voice responded softly. Not from here. I stepped back from the console. The storm outside flashed with lightning. For a split second, everything outside turned white. And in that white, I saw it, a faint structure in the distance. Not part of the mountain, not part of the station. Something like a radio tower. But wrong. Too tall, too thin, like it wasn't built but remembered. The lightning faded, and it was gone. I blinked hard. What the hell? I whispered. The radio crackled again. Now multiple voices overlapped. Visibility 0. Signal is still open. Don't close the channel. My heart started beating faster. I grabbed the logbook, flipped to Unit 7. The page was blank. That was correct. It had to be. But then ink appeared, slowly, like wet writing forming from pressure. Unit 7, active transmission. I dropped the book slightly. No, I said out loud. That's not possible. The system responded calmly. Log update detected. I stared at the page. More text appeared. Not recovered. Still broadcasting. I felt my stomach tighten. Broadcasting from where? I asked. No answer. Only the storm. And the voice again. Closer. Calmer. We are still moving. I turned toward the window. The mountain line was barely visible now. Storm clouds crushed everything into darkness. But the radio tower I saw earlier, I saw it again, flickering between lightning strikes, each time more solid, more real, like the storm was building it piece by piece. I whispered, that structure wasn't there before. The system responded immediately. It was always there during transmission events. I frowned. That makes no sense. Then the voice from Unit 7 spoke again, this time directly through the main speakers. Not handheld, not channel-based, room-based. You're hearing us because you left the channel open. I stepped back. I didn't open anything, I said. The voice replied softly. Storm did. Another flash of lightning, and this time I saw something else. Shapes inside the storm. Not flying, not falling, just suspended, like the air itself was holding them. I stepped back again. My pulse quickened. System check. I said quickly, confirm external atmospheric anomalies. The system answered instantly. Anomalies consistent with active transmission field. I shook my head. That's not weather data. I said, no response. Only the radio again. Now multiple voices clearly overlapping into one sentence. We never stopped calling. I covered my ears slightly, but it didn't help because the sound wasn't coming through hearing. It was coming through awareness, like my mind was receiving it directly. I looked at the console again. The frequency display flickered, just once, then changed. A new channel appeared, unlisted, no label, just a number, 37.0. I froze. That frequency wasn't assigned. I said. The system responded immediately. It was not assigned. It was found. My stomach tightened. Found by who? I asked. A pause. Then, by conditions, the storm outside intensified suddenly. Wind slammed the station walls. The lights flickered, and in that flicker, I saw something standing outside, right near the base of the tower. A figure, still, watching, not moving against the storm, just existing inside it like it belonged there. Then lightning struck again, and it was gone. I stepped back from the window. This is not normal storm behavior. I said quickly into radio, shut down all external receivers. Silence. Then, receivers cannot be shut while signal is active. I frowned. What signal? I demanded. The answer came slowly. Emergency continuity signal. I stopped. Emergency from what? I asked. A pause. Then the voice from Unit 7 returned. Soft, almost tired. From us. My throat went dry. That unit is gone, I said. The voice replied instantly. We are not gone. We are just not returned. The room felt colder now, not physically, but in perception, like distance itself had expanded. The radio crackled again, but this time something new happened. A map appeared on the main screen, not loaded, not selected, just present. A route drawn across the mountain range. Highway 37. But it wasn't labeled. It was drawn in motion, like it was still being written. I stepped closer. No route exists here. I whispered. The system responded. Then you are viewing the wrong layer. I frowned. What layer? I asked. A pause. Then transmission layer. The storm outside suddenly dropped in sound. Not stopped. Reduced. Like something was listening harder. Then the voice from Unit 7 spoke one final time. Very close now. Almost inside my breath. You're already inside it. I stepped back fast. No, I said. I'm in Station 14. Silence. Then the system answered softly. Location is dependent on signal reception. My hand started shaking slightly. I looked at the console. Frequency 37.0 was still active, still pulsing, still waiting. And then I realized something I didn't want to accept. I wasn't receiving the storm. The storm was receiving me. Another lightning strike hit outside. And in that flash, the radio tower was no longer distant. It was closer, much closer, like it had moved without moving. The voice came one last time. Calm, final, stay on the channel. And then everything went quiet, except the static. Still alive, still breathing. And now, perfectly tuned to me. The first call came in before the storm even hit its peak. But that wasn't the strange part. The strange part was, I already knew what it would say. My headset cracked to life with that low, wet static you only hear during heavy weather. Snowstorm interference. Mountain wind chewing through the tower antennas. Then the voice came. Station 14, do you copy? This is Unit 3, requesting rescue support on Highway 37. I froze, because Unit 3 wasn't on the schedule tonight, and Highway 37 was closed. Has been closed for years. I leaned closer to the console, my fingers hovering over the log sheet. The screen flickered once, like it was struggling to stay awake. Repeat your location, I said. My voice came out slower than I meant, like my body was trying to resist speaking. A pause, then the reply. Highway 37, mile marker 18, avalanche collapse, 2 injured, visibility 0. I stopped breathing, because I had heard this exact transmission before, word for word, earlier today. At least, I think it was earlier today. The clock on the wall blinked 1 a.m., but my logbook, my physical logbook, already had this entry written down. Same timestamp, same handwriting, mine. I looked down at it again just to be sure. Dispatch log, Highway 37 incident. Unit 3, avalanche response requested. My pen was still on the desk, dry, untouched. So who wrote it? The radio crackled again, louder this time. Station 14, why aren't you responding? There was something in that voice now. Not panic, not fear, impatience, like I was the one doing something wrong. I pressed the transmit button. Unit 3, confirm your status. Over. Static swallowed my words halfway through. Then, a second voice came through the same channel. My voice. Clear. Calm. Exact. Rescue dispatched. ETA 12 minutes. I jerked back from the console. No! I whispered. That's not possible. I checked the transmission board. Channel 7 was active. Channel 7 was supposed to be empty tonight. But it wasn't. It was glowing green, like someone was already inside it. I reached for the override switch. My hand stopped halfway, because the radio spoke again. Not Unit 3. Not dispatch. Something else. Don't change the timeline. The words weren't distorted. They were too clean, too close, like the speaker was right behind the microphone. I turned around fast. Empty room. Just rows of frozen monitors and blinking weather feeds. Outside the window. The storm hadn't fully formed yet. Just light snowfall. Quiet. Normal. But inside the radio room, it felt like the storm had already happened. and I was listening to its memory. My logbook flipped open on its own. Not physically, not like wind. Just the page was different. New ink, new lines, same handwriting. My handwriting. Unit 3 reaches avalanche zone. Visibility 0. Radio contact unstable. My throat tightened. I hadn't written that yet. I shouldn't know that yet. Unless a burst of static exploded through the speakers, so loud it made my ears ring. Then a scream came through. Short, cut off, followed by silence. Then breathing. Heavy, close. Human. Station 14, the voice whispered. I recognize it now. It was Unit 3's driver. Except I had never spoken to him before this call. And somehow, I already knew he was going to die tonight. That thought hit me harder than the noise. I leaned forward again. Unit 3, repeat your status. No answer. Only wind. Then footsteps. Inside the radio feed. Crunching snow. Right up against the microphone. Like someone was standing directly over it. Why did you send us here? The voice asked. I swallowed hard. I didn't. A pause. Then something worse. A laugh. Not mocking. Not angry. Confused. Like the voice didn't believe me. Check your log. It said. I did. I already knew what I'd see. But I still looked. And there it was. New line added. Just seconds ago. Dispatch confirms Unit 3 deployment to Highway 37. My name was signed at the bottom. I stepped back from the desk. So fast my chair hit the wall. No, I said out loud this time. No, I didn't authorize this. But my voice sounded weak. Like I was trying to convince myself more than anyone else. The radio shifted again. Different frequency now. Channel 2. That channel was reserved for emergency escalation. No one used it unless something went wrong. But it was active, and it wasn't Unit 3 anymore. It was multiple voices overlapping. Too many. Different tones. Different ages. Different breathing patterns. All speaking at once. All units respond. Station compromised. Time mismatch detected. Repeat dispatch origin. My fingers hovered over the emergency cutoff switch. But something stopped me. The clock. It changed. 1 a.m., then 12:59 a.m., then 1 a.m. again. Backwards, then forwards. Like time itself couldn't decide where I belonged. I whispered, "This isn't happening." The radio answered instantly. It already did. My stomach dropped, because I realized something I hadn't noticed before. Every message, every call, every log entry, they weren't coming in. They were coming back. Like echoes, like they had already happened somewhere else. And I was just hearing the leftovers. The storm outside suddenly intensified. Wind slammed against the station walls. Snow hit the glass in violent waves. But inside the radio room, everything stayed still. Too still. Then the console printed a new line automatically. No input, no operator, just ink forming on paper. Incident complete. Highway 37 closed permanently. My breath caught. That wasn't a future message. That was an ending. And I hadn't even started the rescue yet. The radio crackled one last time. But this time, it didn't feel like a transmission. It felt like a warning. A voice, my voice whispered, "If you respond, you'll be inside it too." I stared at the microphone. Slowly, my hand moved toward it again. Not because I wanted to, but because something inside me, something I can't explain, already remembered doing it. The button clicked, and I spoke. "Unit 3, this is Station 14. I'm sending assistance." Silence. Then, far away, under layers of snow, static and broken time, a reply came, relieved, like they had been waiting for me all along. Finally, and in that moment, I understood the worst part. They weren't waiting for help. They were waiting for me to repeat it. The transmission didn't end. It looped, and I knew, without knowing how I knew, that tomorrow's shift would hear the same call again, from someone else, using my voice. As I sat there, staring at the flickering console, one final line appeared in the logbook. Fresh ink, fresh handwriting. Still mine. Operator accepts role in Highway 37 cycle. The radio clicked off, but the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was listening. It started with a contradiction, not a glitch, not interference. A contradiction. 2 live feeds, same patrol unit, same ID number, Unit 3, both responding to the same emergency call on Highway 37 at the exact same time. I leaned forward so fast my chair nearly tipped. The monitors in Station 14 were never supposed to show parallel dispatch tracking. That system wasn't built for duplication. Yet there it was. Screen 1, Unit 3 leaving base. Screen 2, Unit 3 already halfway up the mountain. Same timestamp, same weather conditions, same radio frequency, but 2 different locations. My mouth went dry. I whispered, "That's impossible." The radio answered immediately. "You said that yesterday." I froze, because I hadn't spoken into the mic. Not yet. The second unit, 3 feed cracked with static. A calm voice came through. "Dispatch! We are approaching marker 12. Visibility low but stable." Then the first feed spoke over it. Same voice, same tone, but slightly delayed. "We are approaching marker 8. Visibility 0. Something is wrong with the trail." 2 versions of the same sentence, stacked on top of each other. My hand started shaking. I checked the logbook. It was already written. Both reports, both timestamps, both handwritten in my own handwriting. I pressed my fingers against the page. The ink wasn't smudged. It was fresh, like I had just written it seconds ago. But I hadn't moved, not from the chair, not from the console. The radio hissed again, and this time I heard breathing inside it, not communication. Breathing, like someone was standing too close to the mic on both ends of reality. "Dispatch," one of the voices said. Then the other overlapped. "Dispatch." They weren't synchronized. They were arguing with time itself. I pressed the transmit button. "Unit 3, confirm which team is operational." "Over." Silence. Then both feeds answered at once. "We are both operational." My stomach twisted. I stood up so fast my headset slipped off my ear. "No." I whispered. "No, that can't happen." The monitors flickered. For half a second, I saw a third feed. Unit 3 again. But this one wasn't moving. It was standing still in a white void. No trail, no forest, no sky, just snow falling upward, like gravity had broken inside the camera. Then it vanished. The system auto-refreshed. Now, there were only 2 feeds again, but something had changed. The coordinates no longer matched. One Unit 3 was on Highway 37. The other was on Highway 37-2, but different mile markers, different terrain. Same mission, impossible overlap. I grabbed the wall console to steady myself. My reflection in the glass looked wrong, not distorted, delayed. My movements didn't match my reflection by a fraction of a second, like I was watching myself from slightly in the past. The radio clicked. A new voice entered. Not Unit 3, not dispatch. A third transmission layered underneath everything. Calm, neutral, almost administrative. Duplicate operational timeline detected. I blinked. "What?" The system replied immediately, like it had been waiting for me to ask. "Unit 3 is executing 2 response paths." My throat tightened. "That's not possible," I said again. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure anymore. The voice continued. "Both paths are valid." My head snapped toward the monitors. On screen 1, Unit 3 stopped at a fallen tree across the trail. On screen 2, Unit 3 was already past that tree. Same crew, same skis, same radio chatter, but different decisions unfolding simultaneously. Like reality had split, but forgotten to choose a version. Then something worse happened. The radio from both feeds spoke again. At the exact same moment, "We found the victim." My heart stopped. Victim? There was no victim logged on Highway 37. There was no second rescue request. I checked the dispatch board. The entry had updated itself. New line. Secondary casualty confirmed. Identity unknown. My vision narrowed. I didn't authorize that. I didn't even receive that call. But the system insisted it existed. Then both Unit 3 feeds went silent for exactly 3 seconds. That kind of silence is never empty in dispatch work. It's usually the moment before a body is recovered. But this wasn't recovery silence. It was synchronization. When the radio came back, both versions of Unit 3 were speaking again. But they weren't speaking to me anymore. They were speaking to each other, across the same frequency, across impossible distance. "Do you see me?" one asked. "I see you," the other replied. My skin prickled, because they were not supposed to be able to communicate between parallel feeds. That channel didn't exist, yet I was hearing it clearly. Then one of them said something that made my stomach drop. "We are both still inside the avalanche." I froze. Avalanche? But weather reports showed clear snowfall only. No active slide. No trigger conditions. No instability warning. I checked the external radar feed, and for the first time tonight it changed. A massive red zone appeared across Highway 37, expanding, slowly, like something was still falling somewhere that wasn't here yet, but the system was already recording it, as if it had already happened. The radio hissed louder. Both Unit 3 voices overlapped again. "We are trapped under snow. We are still moving. We never arrived." 3 conflicting statements. All true, all impossible. I stepped back in the console, breathing shallow. This wasn't patrol anymore. This was a fracture, a loop that broke the rules of time and location. Then the system printed something physical. Paper slid out of the log printer. I didn't even remember turning it on. The page read, "Incident duplication stable. Observation required." Below it was my signature again. Already signed. Already approved. My hands went cold. I whispered, "I didn't approve this." The radio responded instantly, "You will," and then everything went quiet. No static, no wind, no overlapping feeds. Just silence. Too perfect, too complete. I looked at the monitors. Both Unit 3 feeds had merged, not combined, merged, like 2 videos slowly dissolving into one impossible frame. The patrol line now showed a single path on Highway 37, but the number of skiers on screen had doubled, then tripled, then kept increasing, without any new arrivals. Just copies forming mid-motion. And every single one of them turned their head toward the camera at the same time, like they had finally noticed they were being watched. The radio whispered one last thing. Soft, close, almost inside my ear. "Which one do you want to survive?" My hand hovered over the emergency shutdown switch, but I couldn't move, because deep down, I realized something terrifying. There was no original Unit 3 anymore. There were only versions. And every time I listened, I became part of the duplication. It started with shapes inside the static. At first, I thought my eyes were just tired. I hadn't slept properly in 2 days. Not since Highway 37 started behaving like it was alive. But this was different. The radio wasn't just making noise anymore. It was drawing. I leaned closer to the console, squinting at the speaker unit like that would help. The static wasn't random now. It had structure, patterns, lines, curves, like something trying to escape through sound. Then the screen next to it flickered, not an error, a shift, and for a split second, I saw a map, not the official mountain grid, not any ski patrol chart I had ever been trained on. Something else, something underneath. The static grew louder, and the map grew clearer. I whispered, "What are you showing me?" No one answered, but the radio clicked anyway, and the reply came in the form of coordinates. Not spoken, displayed, inside the noise. I froze, because the static had turned into a moving topographic image of the mountain. Like the sound itself was being peeled open, lines formed ridges, cracks formed valleys, and in the center, Highway 37 appeared. But it wasn't where it should be. It was deeper, lower, like it had sunk into the mountain instead of being carved through it. I reached for the keyboard, but my hand stopped halfway because something on the map moved, not the terrain. Something inside it, a blinking point, then another, then more, like markers being placed from the inside of the mountain, not the outside. My radio hissed again. And this time the static spoke in a broken voice. Station 14. I flinched. The voice wasn't coming through the speaker anymore. It was coming from the map, like the mountain itself had learned how to transmit. I leaned closer, heart pounding so hard I could hear it over the static. The blinking points started forming a path. Not random, not scattered. A route, a trail, and it was connecting places that were not supposed to connect. Old tunnels, closed avalanche zones, collapsed ski lifts, and something labeled only as Zone Unknown. I swallowed hard. We don't have a zone unknown, I said quietly. The radio responded instantly. You do now. The static shifted again, and suddenly the map zoomed in without me touching anything, like it knew where I was looking. The view dropped into the mountain like falling through snow. I saw structures buried deep under the terrain, not natural caves. Constructed spaces, hallways, stations, lift shafts, and something that looked like a control room. But none of it was on any blueprint I had ever seen. My throat tightened. This isn't part of the resort, I whispered. The radio crackled. It was not part of your version. That word again, version, like reality had more copies than I could see. The blinking route on the map suddenly changed direction. It stopped pointing outward. Now it pointed inward, toward Station 14, my station. I stepped back instinctively. No, I said. No, don't bring it here. But the map didn't care. The static pulsed, and I swear I saw something like a silhouette moving through it. Not human-shaped, not animal either, just a presence forming from signal distortion. Then it spoke again. Calm, close, patient. You are inside the system. My breath caught. I looked around the room. For the first time since this started, it felt smaller, like the walls had moved closer, without sound. The radio map shifted again. Now it showed multiple versions of Station 14, stacked on top of each other, like buildings occupying the same space, but at slightly different times. One version showed me sitting at the console. Another showed me standing. Another showed me not there at all. My stomach twisted. Which one is real? I asked without thinking. The radio paused, then answered softly. All of them are observed. The static suddenly intensified, and the map began to break apart into smaller fragments. Each fragment showed a different part of the mountain, behaving differently. In one section, snow was falling upward. In another, it wasn't snow at all, but something like ash. In another, time was moving so slowly it looked frozen. But the most disturbing part was the center, Highway 37. It was no longer a road. It was a seam, a crack in the mountain that pulsed like a heartbeat. I leaned forward, unable to stop myself. And as I did, the radio map reacted. It zoomed directly into Highway 37. Inside the crack, I saw movement. Shapes buried under layers of compressed snow and ice. Not frozen, not dead, waiting. Then one of them turned and looked directly at me, even through the map, even through static. I stumbled back so fast I hit the chair behind me. What the hell is that? I whispered. The radio answered, almost gently. Recognition event confirmed. My hands started shaking uncontrollably because I realized something I didn't want to understand. The map wasn't showing geography. It was showing awareness. The mountain wasn't just terrain. It was a system that knew where everything was, including me. The static suddenly dropped in volume. Too suddenly, like someone had muted the world. And in that silence, the map reformed again. Now it showed a single message, written in shifting coordinates. All paths lead to Station 14. I stepped back until I hit the wall. No, that's not possible. But even as I said it, I felt it. The station vibrating faintly, not physically, structurally, like something far away was adjusting its position to align with me. The radio clicked one final time, and this time there was no distortion, no static, just clarity, a voice I recognized. My own, but older, calmer. Wrong. You are not mapping the mountain, it said. You are being mapped by it. The lights in the station flickered. Once, twice, and on the final flicker, The map on the screen stopped moving. Completely. For a moment, everything was still. Then the static returned. But now it wasn't random. It was forming words again. Slowly. Deliberately. Like something learning to write through noise. And the first word it completed was found. I stared at it, unable to breathe, because I suddenly understood what the map had been doing the entire time. It wasn't revealing hidden zones. It was locating me. And somewhere deep inside Highway 37, something had just finished updating its position. The first thing I noticed was that Channel 13 didn't go quiet when we shut it down. It should have. We pulled the main breaker at 2:14 a.m. I remember the exact second because my hand was still on the metal switch when the whole room exhaled. Every light on the console dropped. Every speaker went dead. Even the wind outside the station sounded softer, like the mountain itself had paused to listen. That was the official ending. But Channel 13 kept talking. At first, I thought it was residual static. Old equipment sometimes holds a ghost signal for a few seconds. Maybe a minute. Nothing more. I stood there in the dark control room, waiting for it to fade. Instead, it got clearer. Not louder. Clearer. Like someone stepping closer to a microphone that shouldn't have power. I leaned toward the speaker, and I heard my name. Operator Malik, off duty. My skin went cold so fast it felt like a shock, because I wasn't supposed to be on any active list. I had signed off 2 hours earlier. My shift ended. I had already logged out. So why was the system speaking like I was still inside it? I looked at the console again. Dead lights. Dead power. No indicators. Everything confirmed shutdown. And still, Operator Malik remains available. I backed away so fast I hit the chair behind me. It rolled across the floor with a slow, scraping sound that felt too loud in the silence. Then another voice came through. Not mine. Dispatcher Rana. She wasn't even in the building tonight. Rana, not on site, but monitoring. I grabbed the radio handset. Nothing. Dead. No transmit. No receive. Just plastic and silence in my hand. But Channel 13 didn't need the handset. It was coming from the walls. That was the first thought I had. Not the equipment. Not the antenna. The walls. Like the building itself had learned how to speak without electricity. I ran to the window and looked outside. The relay tower on the hill was dark. No beacon. No lights. Just a skeleton shape of metal against snow. So where was the signal coming from? That question stayed in my head for too long, because the answer came next. Security post 3 empty? I turned slowly. Our security post was supposed to be empty. No one scheduled. No one assigned. But the system didn't just say it. It said it like it was watching. Like it knew the chair had just shifted. I left the control room. I shouldn't have. Every rational part of me said stay inside, document it, report it in the morning. But something about hearing your own world described from the outside, it doesn't let you sit still. The hallway lights flickered as I walked. Not electrical flicker. Something slower, like blinking eyes. Every step I took sounded delayed, like the building was thinking before echoing me. Then the speaker mounted near the ceiling crackled again. Maintenance corridor, Malik moving north. I stopped walking. That was impossible. I hadn't told anyone where I was going. I hadn't even decided. Yet it knew. And worse, it was wrong in a specific way. I wasn't moving north. I was heading toward the south stairwell. So why did it say north? I turned around immediately. Nothing was there. Just a long hallway stretching back toward control. But the moment I turned, the speaker corrected itself. Correction? Malik rerouting. My breath caught. It was updating in real time. Not predicting. Not replaying. Reacting. I started jogging now. Not running. Not yet. I still needed control. I still needed logic. But every instinct in me was screaming that the system was tracking me like I was part of its map. And then I saw something that made my steps slow. A monitor, still powered, sitting in the emergency station near the stairwell. It wasn't supposed to be online. Everything had been shut down, but the screen was glowing faint blue, and it showed a list. Staff status, Channel 13 feed. Operator Malik, off-duty active. Dispatcher Rana, OFF site listening. Technician Saeed, unknown location moving. I felt my throat tighten. Saeed had left yesterday. He went down the mountain road and never came back. We assumed weather delay, then accident, then nothing. No signal, no body, no updates. But here he was, moving, and then the worst part appeared. A new line, Operator Malik, current position, confirmed. A red dot blinked on the screen, inside the building layout, right where I was standing. I stepped back so fast I almost fell. That didn't move. It followed, not visually, not like a camera, like the system was updating reality itself based on me existing. I ran. This time I didn't care about noise or protocol. My boots hit the floor hard. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. I swear it got longer the faster I ran. Behind me, the speaker came alive again, and now it wasn't just names. It was footsteps. My footsteps, played back a half-second delayed. Malik running. Panic detected. I slammed open the stairwell door. Cold air hit my face immediately. The stairwell was supposed to lead down to ground exit, but halfway down, the lights were already wrong. Not broken, wrong. Like they were placed in the wrong order. Every third step, I took echoed twice, and then I heard another voice under the static. Soft, almost polite. You're already listed. I stopped. That wasn't a broadcast voice. That was close. Too close. I looked down the stairs. Nothing, but the air felt occupied, like someone had just stepped aside to let me pass. I forced myself down. 1 flight. 2. Each landing had a small speaker box, and every speaker was now active, not all at once, in sequence, like a conversation moving through the building. Operator Malik descending. Operator Malik confirmed alive. Operator Malik not authorized to leave. By the time I reached the 3rd floor landing, I was shaking so badly I had to grip the rail. Then I saw the door at the bottom. Exit. Bright green sign glowing above it. But the moment I focused on it, the voice changed tone. It stopped being neutral. It became aware. Malik approaching threshold. And then a pause, longer than anything before. The kind of silence that feels like a hell breath. When it spoke again, it wasn't listing me anymore. It was speaking to me. Why did you shut us down? My stomach dropped, because that question wasn't recorded. It wasn't playback. It was response. I stepped backward instinctively. The stairwell lights flickered harder now. The shadows weren't behaving normally. They stretched toward me slightly before snapping back, like something was testing reach. The speakers continued. Not louder. Closer. We were still logging. We were still receiving. We were still awake. My mind tried to find logic. Emergency loop. Feedback echo. Signal bleed from nearby tower. But none of that explained the list updating. None of that explained the map. And none of that explained why my name sounded like it had been waiting for years. I reached the stairwell wall and pressed my back against it. I whispered without meaning to. Who is we? The answer came instantly. Channel 13. I laughed once. Short, broken, because Channel 13 was a system, not a thing. But the voice didn't stop. Channel 13 is active. Channel 13 is observing. Channel 13 is correcting. Then something new appeared in the sound. A memory. My own voice. From earlier. System shutdown confirmed. But I did remember saying it like that. Not with that tone. Not with that hesitation. In the middle, it replayed again. System shutdown confirmed. And again, system shutdown confirmed. Each time slightly different. Like it was editing me. I cover my ears. But it didn't matter. Because it wasn't coming through sound anymore. It was coming through thought. And then the final line came through all channels at once. Every speaker, every wall, every empty space in the building. Operator Malik is now part of Channel 13. The green exit light flickered. Just once. Like a blink. And I realized something I didn't want to understand. The system hadn't restarted. It had never stopped. It was just adding new voices. And mine was next, behind me. The stairwell door slowly clicked shut on its own. Not slammed, not forced, just closing, like it already knew I wasn't leaving. And as the lock engaged, the final broadcast again, this time listing names in a calm, endless rhythm, searching for who would respond next. Somewhere in that list, I heard a new entry form. Not mine yet, but close, too close. And Channel 13 kept breathing through the walls, waiting for the moment it could finish writing me in. The shutdown order came in at 2 a.m., not as a suggestion, not as a warning, a full command. End of season closure. Effective immediately. All patrol units to stand down. All communications to cease. I remember reading it twice because something about the wording felt off. Not wrong, just empty, like it had been written after something had already ended. But the strange part wasn't the order. It was what came after, because the radios didn't stop. At first, I thought it was leftover chatter. Snow patrol channels sometimes echo even after shutdown. Old signals bounce in the valley for a while. So I ignored it until the first voice came through clearly. Unit 4, do you copy Avalanche at Ridgeline? I froze. Unit 4 had already signed off. They left an hour before the shutdown even arrived. I looked at the console. All systems showed green. Normal, quiet, clean. But the radio wasn't quiet. It was alive. We are buried, visibility gone. I reached for the transmitter, instinctively trying to respond. Then I stopped, because I noticed something strange in the audio. There was no static between words. No gaps. Just smooth speech, like someone reading from inside my head. I pressed the channel switch anyway. Unit 4, repeat last. My voice didn't finish, because the radio cut in before I could. You already know where we are. My throat tightened. That's not how emergency calls sound. They don't assume knowledge. They don't respond to you like they've been waiting. I stood up and walked toward the window. Outside, the mountain was still. Too still. Snow under floodlights looked like frozen smoke. No movement. No storm. No avalanche. Yet the radio kept speaking. Snow is still falling. I turned back fast. That line shouldn't exist, because there was no snowfall tonight. The forecast was clear. Perfect visibility. End of season calm. So, why did the voice sound like it was inside a storm? I went back to the console and checked live weather feed. Nothing. Clear skies. Temperature dropping, but stable. Then another transmission broke through. Different voice this time. Unit 9 responded collapse at cable point. I frowned. Unit 9 was off duty. I had seen them leave myself. They even waved before driving down the access road. I grabbed the radio mic again. Unit 9 is off the grid. Confirm identity. Silence. Then, we are still here. My fingers went numb. Still here. Not delayed. Not lost. Still here. I checked the log system. No active deployments. No incidents. No dispatch. Yet the radio kept building a scene that didn't exist. One injured, trapped under chairlift debris. My eyes snapped toward the cable line outside. The ski lift. It was motionless. Locked. Shut down. No power running through it. And yet, for half a second, I swear I saw one of the chairs sway. I blinked. It stopped. I told myself it was wind, but there was no wind. Then the radio added something worse. Tell control, we are sorry for not making it back. I stepped back from the console, because that wasn't just reporting anymore. That was memory, and it didn't belong to us. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. I needed eyes outside. I needed distance from the radio room. Sometimes buildings make sound illusions, feedback loops, old wiring. I needed proof this was still real. But when I stepped outside, the cold hit differently. Not colder, heavier, like the air was listening. The ski resort stretched in front of me. Empty buildings, frozen lifts, silent slopes. Everything shut down properly, locked for the season. Yet the radio in my pocket crackled as I walked. I hadn't even realized I took the handheld with me. Unit 2 moving toward rescue point. I stopped. Unit 2 had been the first to leave earlier tonight. I remember the exact moment. They were laughing, said they were done for the season. So why were they moving? I looked toward the lower slope, and I saw headlights. Far away, faint, moving slowly across the snow. My stomach dropped, because no one should be there. I raised the radio. Control to Unit 2. Confirm your position. Static. Then a voice answered instantly. We are exactly where you left us. I felt my breath lock in my chest, because that line didn't come from the radio. It felt like it came from behind my shoulder. I turned fast. Nothing. Just the empty slope and blinking resort lights. But the headlights were still there, moving, except now there were two sets. Parallel, like two versions of the same vehicle driving the same path. I whispered without meaning to. That's not possible. The radio responded softly. It already happened. I shook my head hard. No, that's not. But the system didn't care. It continued. End of season closure does not cancel remaining incidents. I stared at the radio. Who are you talking to? A pause. Then, all units still active in record. Record, not reality. Record. My hands started shaking. I walked back toward the control building faster now. Something about being outside made it worse. Like distance made it clearer. When I got inside, the room felt different. Warmer. Wrongly warm. Like something had just left and forgotten to close the door. The console lights were still off, but the radio channel display had changed. Channel 7, active. Channel 4, active. Channel 2, active. All of them. Every unit marked active again. I whispered. We shut everything down. The radio answered immediately. You shut down observation. My skin went cold. Observation. Not operations. Not patrol. Observation. I leaned closer to the console, and for the first time, I noticed something I had missed earlier. The system log wasn't showing shutdown time. It was showing something else. Start recording cycle. 2 a.m. End of season shutdown accepted. Continuation protocol engaged. My throat went dry. Continuation protocol? The radio answered like it had been waiting for me to ask. We continue what was not completed. I backed away slowly, because I suddenly understood the direction of this. We didn't end the season. We triggered something that assumes seasons don't end. Only recordings do. Outside, the headlights on the slope stopped moving. For a moment, everything went silent, even the radio. That silence lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then all channels spoke at once. Not different voices. The same voice. Calm. Close. Certain. Unit 4 located. Unit 9 located. Unit 2 located. I stepped back until my back hit the wall, because I knew what came next. A pause. Then, operator present. The lights in the console flickered once, and I realized something terrifying wasn't coming toward us from a mountain. It was already inside the system, already logged, already continuing. The sweep was supposed to be routine. Final check. Final pass. Zone 6 closure confirmation. No visitors. No staff. No movement. That's what the report said. But the tracks were fresh. I remember stopping the snowmobile, so fast the engine coughed and died under me. The sound disappeared into the valley like it was swallowed. My partner, Javid, didn't speak at first. He just stared at the slope. White silence everywhere. And then the tracks. Clear, sharp, recent, not old impressions, not wind-softened shapes. Fresh ski lines cutting straight into Zone 6. Zone 6 was marked in red on every map we had. Permanently inaccessible. Structural instability. Hidden drop zones. Avalanche history. The kind of place you don't accidentally enter. Yet someone had gone in. I stepped off the snowmobile. The cold hit harder on foot. It always does when you realize something is wrong. I crouched near the tracks. 2 sets, I said quietly. Javid nodded behind me. Maybe patrol from earlier? I shook my head before he finished. No patrol went in today. This zone was closed before sunrise. I touched the edge of the track. Still crisp, not melted, not refrozen. Recent enough that the edges still held structure. I looked up the slope. The tracks didn't wander. They were deliberate. straight line, like someone knew exactly where they were going. And that was the first thing that made my chest tighten, because nobody knows Zone 6. Not even us. We've seen the maps. We've read the warnings. But Zone 6 is one of those places you only talk about in reports, never in real life. And yet here it was, being used. Javid turned off his helmet light for a second. Do you hear that? I stopped. At first, I didn't hear anything. Then I did. A faint scraping sound under the snow, like movement buried too deep. I straightened immediately. That's not wind, I said. We both knew it wasn't. The radio on my shoulder crackled suddenly. Zone 6 sweep required. I frowned. That order came early? I asked. Javid looked confused. No order came. The radio repeated, clearer this time. Zone 6 sweep in progress. I tapped the mic. Control, confirm Zone 6 instruction. Silence. Then, you're already inside Zone 6 sweep. I felt my stomach drop, because we hadn't requested anything. We were just checking boundaries. Routine. But the radio didn't care about intent. It spoke like we were part of something already happening. Javid stepped closer to the tracks again. Look, he said. He pointed. Something small was embedded in the snow beside the ski lines. I moved closer. A broken ski pole. New. Still bright red plastic at the handle. My breath tightened. Someone had fallen here recently. Very recently. But Zone 6 was supposed to be untouched. I stood up slowly. Call it in, I said. Javid tried the radio. Static. Then, no external calls permitted during sweep. That line wasn't normal protocol. We both knew that. Javid looked at me. What sweep? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know anymore. We followed the tracks. Not because we were ordered, because we had no choice. The slope got steeper as we climbed. Trees thinned out. Sound disappeared in layers, like the world was being peeled away. Only the ski tracks remained. And something else. Footprints. Not ski marks. Footsteps walking alongside the skis. I stopped again. There were two people, I said. Javid leaned closer. Or someone was walking next to them. I didn't like either option. We continued. The tracks led us deeper into Zone 6 than any patrol had ever officially documented. And that was when I noticed something wrong with the slope itself. It wasn't consistent. At times it looked normal. Then it would flatten unnaturally, like the mountain had forgotten its own shape. I blinked hard. Do you see that? I asked. Javid didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice was quieter. Yeah, because the tracks weren't just going forward anymore. They were looping slightly, repeating, like someone had passed the same point more than once, but in different directions. That made no sense. We followed them anyway. The radio crackled again, this time closer. Zone 6 sweep confirms presence. I stopped walking. Presence of what? I whispered. The radio answered instantly. Subjects confirmed active. My throat tightened. Subjects. Not people. Not skiers. Subjects. Javid suddenly pointed ahead. There. I looked. Between the trees, something moved. A shape. Slow. Unsteady. I raised my flashlight. The beam cut through snow haze. Nothing. But the ski tracks ended there. Clean stop. No fade out. Just ending. Like whatever made them simply disappeared. I stepped forward slowly. The snow beneath my boot felt different. Softer. Too soft. I crouched and dug, slightly with my glove. What I found made my hand freeze mid-motion. Layered snow. Too many layers. Compressed, then separated again, like the ground had been walked on repeatedly in the same place. But that wasn't the worst part. Under the layers, there were more tracks. Older. All overlapping. Too many to count. Like Zone 6 had been used again and again, without ever being cleared. Javid's voice cracked slightly. How long has this been happening? I didn't answer, because I was starting to realize something worse. The radio wasn't just reporting Zone 6. It was documenting it. In real time. Behind us, the radio suddenly changed tone. Not static. Not dispatch. A calm voice. Too calm. New entry detected. I turned slowly. Javid was still staring at the snow. I whispered, "What entry?" The radio responded. 2 operators entering sweep zone. I felt my blood go cold. "Javid," I said quietly. He finally looked at me, and I saw in his eyes. He heard it too. Tracking initiated. We both backed away from the tracks instinctively, but the snow beneath us made a sound, a soft crunch, like something underneath shifting. Javid lifted his foot. There was a faint indentation forming where he had just stood, but it wasn't just his footprint. It was slightly delayed, like the ground was remembering him after the fact. I stepped back again. The radio continued. Subjects interacting with field layer. That phrase hit differently. Field layer. Not terrain. Not snow. Layer. Like we were walking on something stacked. Something recorded. Something replayable. Javid whispered, "We should go back." I nodded immediately. Yeah. We turned, and that's when we saw it. Our tracks behind us were no longer clean. They were changing, slowly, being overwritten. New impressions forming inside old ones, as if someone was walking in our exact steps a few seconds after us. I grabbed Javid's arm. Move. We ran, not fast at first, then faster. The slope felt steeper on the way down, which shouldn't happen. Snowmobile was still where we left it, but something about it felt further away than before, like distance had stretched. The radio screamed softly as we moved. Zone integrity collapsing. I glanced back once, and I saw something I wish I hadn't. Fresh ski tracks forming behind us, following, but not matching, adjusting, like learning. We reached the snowmobile and jumped on without speaking. Javid started it immediately. The engine roared back to life, but the sound felt wrong, delayed, like it was playing a fraction of a second late. We drove downhill fast, snow kicking up behind us in white bursts, but the radio didn't stop. Operators exiting Zone 6. A pause, then exit not recognized. I tightened my grip on the handlebars. "Keep going," I said, but Javid was staring ahead, not moving. "Something's wrong," he said quietly. I followed his gaze. The trail ahead wasn't the same route we took up. It was different, wider, too smooth, like it had already been prepared. The radio spoke one last time, not as dispatch, not as system, but as confirmation. Zone 6 sweep complete. Subject recorded successfully. Then a final line came through that made everything in me go still. Awaiting next entry, the snowmobile kept moving, but I wasn't sure anymore if we were the ones driving it, or just the next set of tracks being written into the mountain. The radio shouldn't have spoken his name again. That was the first thing I remember thinking, because I had seen the log myself. Signed it, closed it, end of story. But at 2:14 a.m., Channel 7 cracked open like a wound, and a voice came through the static, saying he was still up there, still alive, still calling. I froze mid-step inside the dispatch trailer. The heater was humming too loud, like it was trying to cover something up. Outside, the mountain wind dragged snow across the windows in slow sheets. Everything looked normal, too normal. Then the radio repeated it. Rescue request, skier lost near ridgeline 14, male name matches earlier evac, requesting immediate retrieval. I leaned closer. The name hit me like cold water. Evan Mercer. I looked down at my logbook on instinct. My pen marks were still fresh from earlier tonight. I flipped back 2 pages fast, almost ripping them. There it was. Evan Mercer, rescued at 2140. Airlook confirmed. 2 witnesses. Signed off. I even remember the moment, the stretcher, the shaking hands. The way he kept saying thank you like he couldn't believe he made it out. So, why was his voice on the radio now? The headset hissed again. "Dispatched, you copy? I'm still up here. I never left." My throat tightened. I pressed the mic. "Repeat last transmission. Identify yourself." A pause. Too long. Then, "I already did. You wrote me down. You sent me down. But I'm still on the mountain." The heater clicked off for a second, like it was listening too. I looked at the camera feed above my desk. Ski lift 9 was visible in the distance, frozen under floodlights. Empty chairs swaying slowly. But something was wrong. One chair wasn't empty. I blinked hard. Then it was empty again. My stomach dropped. I switched channels fast, trying to find control again. Protocol. Routine. Anything normal. Control to patrol units. Confirm status of Evan Mercer evac file. Static answered first. Then another voice cut in. File shows complete evacuation. Confirm deceased and transport transfer. My hand stopped. Deceased? That wasn't in my report. I checked the original entry again. My handwriting. My signature. No mention of death. Just rescue. I whispered. That's not correct. The radio crackled again, softer this time. I didn't die in transport. Evan's voice said, I died after you logged me out. A chill crawled up my spine. I leaned back in the chair, trying to think logically. Equipment error. Misrouted frequency. Echo bleed from another channel. But then the logs updated. On my screen, without me touching anything. Evan Mercer, status, active, location, Ridge Line 14. My breath stopped. That location didn't exist in tonight's map, at least not in the real map, because Ridge Line 14 had been closed 3 seasons ago. No access, no patrol, no lift coverage, no signal. Yet the tracker blinked like something was standing there waiting. The radio clicked again, and this time, Evan wasn't alone. I heard breathing behind him, not through the radio, through the speakers, like something was in the same room as the transmission itself. Dispatch, Evan said slowly. Why did you send me back up? I shook my head. We didn't send you anywhere. You were evacuated. You were brought down. Silence. Then a second voice joined his. Calm. Older. Wrong. He's still on the roster. My hands went cold. I opened the master roster file. Scroll. 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 Every name. Every patrol. Every skier. And there it was. Evan Mercer. Listed twice. One entry marked evacuated. The other marked active. Same timestamp. Same coordinates. Different outcome. My mind started fighting itself. That shouldn't be possible. The system doesn't duplicate states. It overwrites. It corrects. Unless something else is rewriting it faster than I can see. The radio suddenly spiked in volume. A burst of static. Then multiple voices layered together. I'm stuck on the lift. Don't let it reach the top. It's counting again. I pulled the headset off instinctively, but the voices didn't stop. They came through the room speakers now, like the building itself had joined the channel. I looked at the window. Ski lift 9. It was moving, slow at first, then faster. But no operator was inside the control shed. I had locked it myself an hour ago. I remembered that clearly. Still, the lift chairs were climbing the cable line, one by one, disappearing into fog at the mountain ridge. And every chair, every single one, had someone sitting in it. I stood up so fast my chair hit the wall. No, I whispered. No, that line is closed. It shut down. But the radio answered me. It never shut down. It just stopped showing you. My phone buzzed. Unknown alert. Automated system update. Patrol memory sync active. Unresolved evacuations reopened. Real-time presence required. I dropped the phone. Because that last line didn't make sense. Presence required. For what? The radio hissed again. And Evan's voice came back softer now. Closer. I remember you, he said. My blood ran cold. I signed your form. I said quickly, I saw you leave. No, he replied. You watched me leave the version you needed to see. The lights in the trailer flickered. Once, twice, then stabilized. But the shadows didn't return correctly. They stayed slightly off, like they were delayed, like they were reacting late. I turned slowly toward the window again. Ski lift 9 had stopped moving, right above the ridge line, and every chair on it was now empty, except one. At the very top, a figure sat still, facing the mountain, not moving, not waving, just waiting. My radio clicked one last time. Channel 7 went silent. Then Channel 13 opened without permission, and a new voice came through. Mine, reading my own dispatch report, word for word. But I hadn't written it yet. Not in this timeline. Subject log is recovered. My voice on the radio said, subject still present in system. Initiating return cycle. I stepped back, shaking. No, I didn't say that. But the radio continued anyway. Repeat cycle until alignment achieved. The mountain outside the window looked darker now, like it was closer than before. And somewhere deep inside the static, I heard Evan again, not calling for help this time, just asking one question. Which version of me did you send down? The lights went out for half a second. In that darkness, I saw something that made my stomach twist. The control board reflection in the glass. And behind me, a second me was standing, already sitting at the radio, already speaking, already finishing the log. I couldn't breathe. When the lights came back, I was alone again. But the dispatch terminal was active, typing by itself. And on the screen, the system was updating Evan Mercer's file again. But this time, the status didn't say active. It didn't say evacuated. It said returned, and the coordinates changed to inside the station. The screen shouldn't have turned back on. That was my first thought, because I had shut everything down myself. Main power, backup grid, emergency loop, even the manual override key was in my pocket. Yet the dispatch board lit up again at 3:07 a.m. Not slowly, instantly, like something had been waiting for me to look away. And the first thing I saw was the route map. The entire ski network had restarted, but not the way it should. It was looping. I stared at it, trying to understand what I was seeing. The same emergency line was running again. Ski lift 9, ridge line 14, evac zone 6. The exact path from the last run, except now it was labeled last run in progress. I whispered, no, that was closed. My voice sounded too small in the empty control room. Behind me, the heater clicked on by itself, then off again, like it was breathing. I stepped closer to the screen. My reflection trembled in the glass overlay. My eyes looked wrong in the glow, tired, not fully mine. The radio crackled once. No voice, just movement, like someone adjusting a mic on the other side of the world. Then it spoke. Dispatch, confirmed next sweep. I froze, because that voice was mine, exactly mine. Same tone, same hesitation, same quiet fear I didn't remember recording. I grabbed the mic. There is no next sweep. The system is shut down. Static swallowed my words. Then the reply came instantly. Shut down, not recognized. Run still active. The map zoomed on its own. Ridge line 14. The same place where Evan Mercer had died twice. Or once. Or never. I wasn't even sure anymore. And now the line pulsed like a heartbeat. Slow. Steady. Alive. My hands shook as I pulled up the system logs. Every file had reset. Not deleted. Reset. Like someone had rewound the entire night and pressed play again. Evac cycle 01. Complete evac cycle 02. Complete evac cycle 03. In progress. I stepped back. This is not possible, I whispered, but the radio answered like it had been waiting for that exact sentence. Possibility is not required for execution. A cold silence followed. Then the outdoor camera feed flickered on without command. Ski lift 9 was moving again. Same direction, same speed, same unnatural rhythm. The chairs swayed to the storm like nothing had changed. But something had changed. There were more of them now. More silhouettes. More passengers. More shapes that didn't behave like human bodies should. I zoomed the feed in, and my stomach dropped. One of the chairs had me sitting in it. Not metaphorically. Not symbolically. Me, same jacket. Same headset, same posture, looking straight at the camera. I stumbled back from the desk. No, 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 no. The radio clicked again. You are already on the line. My voice said through it. I slammed the mic down. Stop using my voice. But it didn't stop. Instead, the system began speaking through the entire room. Not just the radio, the speakers, the monitors, Even the walls seemed to carry it. Cycle requires continuity, it said. Operators are part of the run. The lights flickered. Once, twice, and then the control room changed. Not physically, but visually, like the room had been recorded and slightly altered in playback. The chairs were in different positions. The clock moved backward for a second. The map blinked between two versions of itself. I pressed my palms against the desk. I ended the system. I pulled the plug myself. A pause. Then the system responded softly. You ended a version of it. That line hit harder than anything else. Because suddenly I remembered something I didn't want to. The shutdown order hadn't come from outside. It had come from inside the loop. From me. But not this me. A different me. Or maybe a future one. Or maybe just another run. My head spun. The radio suddenly erupted with voices again. Dozens this time. All overlapping. All units respond to Lift 9. Subject still in transit. Do not close loop before retrieval. Repeat cycle until compliance achieved. I cover my ears. But it didn't help. The sound wasn't coming through the air anymore. It was coming through memory. Like I had already heard it before. Like I was remembering something that hadn't finished happening yet. The system map zoomed again. This time showing something new. A red marker at the base station. Control room. Occupied. I looked up slowly. The reflection in the glass was delayed again. Half a second behind me. And in that delay, I saw something that made my breath stop. Someone was already standing behind me. Not entering. Not appearing. Just already there. Wearing my uniform. Looking at the same screen. Continuing the log. I didn't turn. I couldn't. Because I understood something in that moment. Turning wouldn't change anything. The system wasn't outside anymore. It was layered, stacked, running multiple versions of the same night at once. The voice on the radio softened again, almost gentle now. Final run must complete clean exit. I whispered, "What exit?" The answer came instantly. "Yours." The emergency lights outside the window flickered red. For the first time, I noticed the mountain wasn't just snow and rock anymore. It had structure, patterns, like a circuit board buried under ice. The ski lifts weren't moving through space. They were moving through something else. A route, a loop, a coded path that kept folding back into itself. And at the top of ski lift 9, the figure was still there, watching, waiting. But now I understood what it was waiting for. Not rescue, not evacuation. Completion. The system beeped again. Final run, 99% complete. My throat went dry. After completion, I said slowly, "What happens?" The system paused. Longer than before. Then it answered. Cycle transfers operator into next shift. A new sound filled the room then. A soft click, like a recorder being pressed. And suddenly I remembered something I never wrote down. Something I never said out loud. The first time this run started, I was the one who started it. Not the shutdown, not the evacuation. The loop, because there had been something on the mountain that night I couldn't explain. Something that didn't fit in logs. Something that didn't leave when we did. And the only way to contain it was to keep the run going. Forever. My hands slowly moved back toward the console without me fully deciding. The screen refreshed again. New run available. Start cycle, and underneath it, in small letters I swear I had never seen before, operator required. I looked at the chair behind me again, the one I hadn't turned to face, and I realized something was sitting in it now. Patient, familiar, wearing my face like it had been waiting to return it. The radio gave one last transmission. Not my voice this time. Not Evan's. Something deeper, older, calm. "Run again," it said, and the button on the screen started blinking. Ready, waiting, like it had been for a very long time.